Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. We got a guest here, Eric Kiss. How you doing, Eric?
Doing just fine, Darlene. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Before we get started, I want to read this. Abuse affects our lives in so many ways. What do we do when we are too scared to tell? When we have trusted someone and they did not help? Someone sometimes asks, "What did you do to get punished this way?" Abuse is abuse. Abuse is not punish. Uh, is not punishment. Abuse is torture, crippling, and debilitating. What advice would you give others to help them through the horrendous memories? Are you there for the person, or are you part of the knife in your friend or relative's back since you may have turned a blind eye to it? Are you claiming to advocate against abuse but condemn the people who tell and share their stories? Do you want to be a part of the solution or part of the problem? Let's stand united and discuss ways in which we may help others. What ways have helped you in your healing journey? Are you in a constant battle fighting the negative forces within? Stop. Let's encourage one another. Are you an officer in the judicial system not doing your job to help the victim? That means you're not doing your duty. Your duty is to serve and protect. How do we open the public's eyes so they can acknowledge and feel the need to help protect the children and our citizens? The children are our future. You matter. So I went through a little problem today as well, and with where um, I got back from taking somebody to the airport yesterday, and there was somebody that was upset because we got some two do-gooders here that's really bad, awful people in these apartments. And it's like the people in charge are believing these pedophiles, sex people that keeps haggling other people. One of them's a peeping Tom, who I even told the people this year that it happened, and that I was actually told by one of the maintenance men that peeping Tom is not a crime. So it's like no matter what's happening, and now one of the people are being a victim based on the pedophiles, peeping Tom's word, and it was all a lie. And it's like so many people, if you try to tell about that they came in and they saw you nude, they didn't turn, they turned around and they scoffed or laughed, or they just kept standing there when they saw. It's like you're being kicked out for trying to stand up for your rights on these people coming in and just treating you like that. And when you've been victimized so much, even if you haven't been victimized, no one's got a right to stand there and stare at you when you are completely naked or half naked or anything. You know, you got your rights where you live to be respected. And I've got the chance that just me talking about it tonight, I got the chance. I might be kicked out myself, okay? But I am so tired of these scenarios. I want people in our government to stand up. I want the police officers in our county, to stand up. I want the sheriff's department to stand up for us. It keeps being violated by these people in power. I'm so tired and fed up because the people in power, the police officers, the housing things, and because of government officials, they keep getting away with treating us bad and yet not getting reprimanded. Something needs to stop with these people in power that keeps harassing us, or um, that harasses y'all as well. You know. Hey, Parky. Hey, Parky, would you like to come up? Uh, so, what do you think about that? Eric?
It's absolutely right. Those are the kind of things that happen. It's been my experience for quite some time, especially over the last several years. It's escalated as time has gone along. Of course, being a family member of law enforcement for 21 years of marriage, it wasn't so evident until after the fact of my divorce. Then 2 years following my divorce, then it began, and it's continued and escalated. So there's no doubt about it that some of the people that do wear a badge, I'm not saying all of them because some of them are good,
Exactly.
there are those out there that do wear a badge, but they're not actually out there to protect and serve you per se.
And I do love the sheriff. I do love our sheriff. He's a really good guy, and I hope that he would end up standing up, to help combat and stand with us. But I'm just kind of skeptical because, I've never really had anybody in law enforcement that stood up for me before. They further victimized, so it's like I'm a little bit afraid.
Yeah, yeah, and I've met some of them even during this time that handled themselves very professionally,
A
that
lot
did their
anyway.
job, uh, and didn't give me a problem. But then there is other times, like the case that I'm involved in now, which I can't go into it in depth because it's still an active, ongoing case that is going to trial. Where
Yeah, this is Eric Kiss under Charles Rogers' StreamYard name, but Charles is upstairs. He might end up coming down. So y'all say
he's
hi
here
to
now.
Eric Kiss. Y'all say hi to Eric Kiss. This is him right now talking.
Okay, let's see here. Let's state where he's up for the others. Yep.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's very good.
absolutely. I just in this case, it's pretty obvious and evident that there was other issues at play, other circumstances surrounding why they showed up that led into a totally different scenario than what I was prepared for.
Oh
But
yeah.
I was
They,
also in the process, me and Governor Rogers was in the process of trying to make arrangements to get to Washington to meet with the director of the FBI. So,
I mean, you
it,
can look at Signal Hire. If you can find that, y'all find Signal Hire, and you would see Charles Rogers' name listed as on there.
yeah, and he's here now in the studio with me. He's here. He's down here now. So
Yes.
he's,
Hi,
he's here.
Charles. And I
Hi.
hope that some of y'all will come up here and join us in this case and these endeavors and let us know what y'all are dealing with and all the different crooked stuff. Like there's even that I looked up a case recently where somebody in 2024 was arrested for messing with somebody under the age of 16. It went to court and he was given um, probation, is let out of jail the next day, and then he recently got caught from Idaho. It was caught in Georgia, and he had kidnapped somebody. Was Washington State, y'all? Is that where it was at?
I don't
Where
remember
he
where it
had,
was, but he was caught in Georgia.
yeah, he was caught in Georgia, and had a victim that was kidnapped, basically, that was missing. And I think it was Washington State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, before we go jumping too far, we want to get back on the dirty cop issue. That's you have that video going around YouTube today that the this black female judge was stopped by this police officer.
Thank you.
She was doing 30 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour speed zone. And she was stopped by the police officer because she was looking suspicious, doing 5 miles less than the speed limit. So what does the harebrain do? He goes back and he breaks her tail light. So when
Do what? Seriously?
she
Seriously.
serious.
I watched it with him. I couldn't. He pointed it out to me. I'm like, for real? How
Oh
petty can you
boy.
be?
And she was in her black, robe over her dress on her way to work, and she gets out of the car and she goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, you're driving with a busted tail light. No, I wasn't busted until you busted it, and he's
So
like,
he
"Well,
got
what
it
are
on
you
his own
doing?"
dash cam, right? So it was on
Yeah,
his
he goes,
dash cam
"What are
that
you
he did
doing?"
it, huh?
What are
Um,
you doing with your bathrobe on?
yeah, what are you doing with a black robe on? She goes, "Surprise, judge." He goes, "Well, I'm not a judge." She goes, "No, you're not a judge. I'm a judge." And this guy wants to sit there and tell her that she doesn't even look like a judge.
Yeah, and why didn't she stay to begin with?
Yeah. And so, after she sat there, took her citation, going, on her way to work, sat there and told her she's going to see him in court. And he's like, "Well, why didn't you just tell me up front you were a judge?" And her answer was, "You're supposed to treat all the citizens with,
Equal
respect."
respect.
So I could imagine that by the time she got to court over that
He
citation,
was
that
fired.
he if he wasn't made to resign, he was fired. Because we don't need
Right.
those. We don't need those kind of people in our departments, and we know we've already got our share of them, and they make the good law enforcement
Look back.
officers look bad. Is what happens, and it's breaking the. It's really already broken the public trust.
I'm
And
sorry, you got me laughing on that. I'm sorry.
but
I like it when somebody's caught.
yeah, and these dash cams people are putting on their automobiles now is really helping people, you know, avoid unnecessary payouts. There was that one video. This woman driver was driving her SUV, and this automobile pulled up in front of her and put on its brakes and turned around and put it in reverse and backed into her. And twice to make it look like she rear-ended them. Of course, 3 or 4
Right.
passengers get out of the automobile, and then one of them looks at her rearview mirror and see that she had a dash cam, and he's sitting there just shaking his head side to side because they knew they, messed up. And
Yeah, you know Charles is here now. You can tell that voice, can't you?
so this I know I've had my share of run-ins with dirty cops. I know there was some down there that night at the Chattahoochee River. When I went down there that night, I later found out, who a lot of them were down there, former sheriff of Cobb County, Bill Hudson. And, and it's sad to say that, that there was members of law enforcement, prosecutors, judges and all that involved in the Atlanta child murders. But we just have to look at the fact that, that there were. And just because just because they may hold high positions in law enforcement doesn't mean they're the most upstanding citizen in the community. I'm not trying to dog police chiefs or sheriffs or judges or prosecutors or anything like that, but the grim reality is when all this stuff keeps coming out on the Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeff Epstein cases, and more keeps coming out, and of course more and more keeps coming out on the JonBenet Ramsey case, the people are going to see just how corrupted that this system has, become, you know, since the middle of the 20th century.
Yeah, but
And it's,
also, when you look back even in the biblical times with the Pharisees, Sadducees, it was bad back then too. And see, even a lot of times people say, well, you used to be able to let your kids play in the yard and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, a lot of times that's true, but still, even back in those times when we were growing up, there was a lot of kids missing, like that with the ice cream escapade. Your story, that what? How old were you at that time?
I remember the milk carton children.
I'm talking about the ice cream person when they tried to
Oh, the
encourage
ice
you
cream
about the
guy
ice
down in
cream. And,
Naples, Florida. I was 3 years old.
and then that neighbor girl went missing.
Yes, ma'am. The 5-year-old girl down the street, and the police actually found her with the ice cream driver. And I would like to try to find that newspaper article because that was 1969 when that
Yes.
happened there in Naples, Florida.
And so all these people that we're mentioning today, they're people before them, their ancestors, uh, a lot of them were pedos themselves. And some of them weren't, and just turned around that way, kind of like your daddy was not a pedo, but your brother was. So he started that in the family. And I hope that it did not continue down his lineage.
Well, no, actually, my brother Fred got pulled in through my cousin Robert Veach.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the one you did in the video today that showed his picture wearing that hat and the sunglasses.
yeah, the American hat and the American shaded sunglasses and all that. He's living in Florida now. So, you know, I just, you know, I can say I hope no children wind up missing down there. Um, but they normally don't focus anymore on children around where they live. They're each other's scouts. Um, and as more becomes apparent with your large corporations like BlackRock, Vanguard, the Home Depot, um, General Electric, Coca-Cola, I think the more discouraged a lot of Americans are going to be about doing business with these corporations until these people are taken into custody and some real, law-abiding people to put in their place to run these corporations, because what we got is a real mess. Yeah, that's why we have so many unsolved serial killer cases. Is not all serial killers act alone. They normally work in groups. Um, there are some guys that are brazen enough to go out there and, you know, um, snatch a woman off the street by themselves, but there are very few far in between. It normally takes two or more people to snatch adults and even some children off the streets. It's just, you know, we're just, people are having to wake up to the realization of that. Like with the John Wayne Gacy case, John Wayne Gacy was out of town when one of the victims wound up murdered in his home and buried underneath his crawl space. And I've already mentioned who admitted to doing that up there in Murphy, North Carolina. So it goes back to that song Red Rider came out there in the 1980s, the Lunatic Fringe, because it's in pop culture. And it's in the music, and there are artists who sing about it. And Red Rider, with that case, there's a lot of symbolic meaning in that song when you sit there and you look at it. When you look at people like Prince Andrew, you know, Jeff Epstein, and some of these foreign leaders tied to the British crown, the gold fringe around the United States flag is really a flag of admiralty jurisdiction. It's really not really an American flag, but yet they're in the courtrooms throughout the country. And there's even some, American Legion and VFW post, it's got that flag over there, that gold fringe around it, and then what they pledge the allegiance to. And there's a lot of people that are unaware of what that gold fringe is, but the lunatic fringe really strikes me with the knowledge that I have that, that song is really about the people who are in power. And
Ah,
when you sit there, you listen to the lyrics, you hear the footsteps stomping and stuff like that. That it's that big brother rhetoric that a lot of people had fear and still feared since the 1960s, heading into I'm trying to think of the term that is normally used, is on the tip of my tongue, but a country under new dictatorship, martial law, where the military is in total control of the country and everyone. And I'm trying to think of the name of that author that wrote that book, because that's what we normally call that type of dialect. But that's what's always been the fear of the American people, is to be under the rule and control of tyrants, and that's exactly what we're under right now with these big major corporations that are pretty much being ran by members of the Mossad and the Zionist State of Israel. So that's where we're at right now, and there's people that are waking up to it, that it's really the Israeli government that is really responsible for the child sex trafficking throughout the world, and the countless lives of American as well as Palestinian children. And I hate to say it, but it really is what it is. And the sooner the American people open their eyes and realize that we have a problem and there has to be something done about it now, the much better off everyone will be. I was listening to a interview with Margie Taylor Greene talking about August being the month that Congress is all lax, and how they'll take the freshman congressman out there to Israel and take them through the tours, and put them in the garb and take them to the wall. So when they come back to the United States, they've already been compromised. Is how they're able to, control our Congress. Is how they're able to control our president. And now it's being called out by a lot of people besides myself. And more Christians are starting to wake up that their ideology is what we call the modern day Pharisees. They believe that Jesus is actually bullying in human excrement and hell, it was a magician, a wine bibber, and born um, a bastard child of a Roman soldier or a carpenter. They can't make up their mind which way they want to believe when it comes to dogging Jesus and putting everyone down who believes in him. But that's pretty much what we are. We are in a holy war. It's just a lot of Christians are starting to wake up to the deception that has been pushed on us in the 20th century through the mainstream media and these and the entertainment industry with these big televangelists that are all totally supportive of Israel. Jeff Epstein, he was a member of the Mossad.
Were you talking about the Little Red Rider Band and the Lunatic Friends song? Because I've been trying to figure out the lyrics, trying to find it.
Yes, ma'am. Red Rider. Yeah, Red
Okay, it
Rider.
says Red Rider and it's got Lunatic Fringe. Is that the name of the song?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me read y'all the lyrics right quick. Not the chorus, okay, but just the other verse 1. Lunatic Fringe, I know you're out there. You're in hiding and you hold your meetings. I can hear you coming. I know what you're after. We're wise to you this time. Wise to use this time. We won't let you kill the laughter. And then go to verse 2. Lunatic Fringe in the twilight slash gleaming, but this open season, but you won't get too far because you got to blame someone for your own confusion. We're on guard this time against your final solution. Now, verse 3 says, we can hear you coming. We can hear you coming. No, you're not going to win this time. Not going to win. We can hear your footsteps. We can hear the footsteps. Hey, Al, out along the walkway, out along the walkway. And then it ends with saying, Lunatic Friends, we all know you're out there. We can feel the resistance. Can you feel the thunder? And that's how it basically ends and goes.
Yeah, it's been in the pop culture since the 1960s, and as we see today, we're being classified socialist either way we look at it. If we're conservatives, we are considered radical right wings. If we're, you know, liberals, we're considered far left wings. There's, of course, the Democrats, they have the moderates and the far left.
Yeah.
And so far, what we're
Chris,
seeing being exposed out there really is the far left.
so Chris is asking a question now. Can you ask Charles or Eric if they're familiar with any cases that advocates should look at the moment?
What type of cases?
And plus, you just note that everybody should leave Burke Ramsey alone. Please leave
Yeah,
Burke alone.
leave Burke alone. Just look at John Andrew Ramsey, and just give him the new nickname, the hairbrain without the hair lip.
And
Because
also look up, you can see more information on Jay Ramsey, which is John Ramsey's father. And he had helped with North Fox Island. If somebody wants to look more into the North Fox Island, I would want y'all to do that. And also these different cases where I tried to do about the boys, the school over here that was in Tennessee, and with Vermilly, I think it's how you spell Vermi, Y Ly or something like that. And it's very vast and gross. These sick, twisted people, when they were in prison, were even allowed putting pornographic and printing it out, sending these boys club items, the pornography, to people while they were in prison. Sick and twisted.
yeah, this
I done some of the cases like that, and I did some of it, and they drowned out a lot of it, or they hide it when from y'all too. They've been deleting a lot of the literature and the proof I've been showing y'all behind the pudding.
well, yeah. What's sad is you have a lot of people on death row who become millionaires while they're in prison, and um, through the stuff that they get into with cell phones and stuff like that, and they always have ways to somehow manage to get these devices into the prisons, and um, they'll wind up catching one guard, for bringing in contraband, but it never stops. The contraband keeps coming into the prison. So,
Right. And even,
um,
and I want to say also this, Charles, they could also, I think you would like, because when you said that about when John Ramsey threatened you, right? And you heard him threaten Beth that he was going to do something to John Bonet on the anniversary of, what is her name?
Jill Robinson.
Jill Robinson, that was one of the people in the Oakland child murders. Look up her death date and see if it does coincide with John Bonet's. Okay,
Yeah, I
and
was watching them.
he did say that, and outside, was it Lake Graphics or where was that?
Yeah, this was outside Leighton Graphics over by Tip Top Poultry there in Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah, where he came out and was telling his buddies and all, and you happened to be right there about how he shot Jill, kept her a couple days better, and then how he shot her, and everybody thought it was so funny.
Well, it was
Hearing that she
actually
got
my
shot in the
brother.
face.
That was actually my brother Fred, Roger Nance, and the two technicians that John was training data entry for the microfilm computer hardware he had just designed that year for Lockheed Martin and the U.S. government. And Leighton Graphics, they was the company that already was handling Cobb County. So he was training the technicians how to, download the data from the microchip computer hardware into the microfilm computer hardware, because the following year, Uncle Sam shut down the mica production here in the United States, which wound up sending the microchip industry across seas over to Japan. And so everything in late 1983 got converted over to microfilm. And the companies that he partnered with was IBM, Polaroid, General Electric, Home Depot, General Motors, um, I think even Coca-Cola had their dips in it. And of course, Bentley Enterprises and Bentley Law Group there in Marietta.
Right.
Just about all the people, these CEOs that was involved with him, including Ted Turner, in the Atlanta child murders. And it's not that I had pulled the year before was the reason why. Yeah, that's Jill. It's why it was so imperative for them to meet me before my 18th birthday, because they was either going to do one or two things: go out and try to initiate me or kill me. One, and they would have wound up killing me, because I wouldn't have been able to bring myself, even at 17, almost 18 years of age, to engage in any type of activity with a child, especially when it comes to genital mutilation, and what they do to these little boys is just terrible.
Yeah, and I hated what my dad did to me at age 4. When it's kind of crazy when I was laying on the couch and he spread my legs and and cut me off between my legs, and he actually put it in his mouth and ate it, that part of me that he cut off.
Ooh.
And years later, after I had, even after my divorce and I moved here in Tennessee, finally, all these other people never told me this, okay? So I asked them, I went and said, please examine me down there and tell me whether or not part of me is missing in that area, whether is accurate or not. And she said that 2/3 have been cut off and all that's left, is a third there. But when I actually, and she was not a gynecologist or a OBGYN. So a couple years ago, I got to actually see the OBGYN. The other was a nurse practitioner, so she was not as qualified as the OBGYN, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I went to her and she said, no, dear, all you got is scar tissue on that one side. It's just a little bit of skin right there, and that's just a scar tag. So he completely cut off the whole area on that one side, just leaving that scar tag there. And man, you talking about, I had known about me being cut there before, because I told this previously. But when I found out that more had been cut off than what I had known previously, you
Mm-hmm.
talking about another dark depression. You talking about reliving that again and knowing that more of me was cut off than what was previously said had been cut off. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that was hard for me to take. And I remember back when I told my sister after I first found out, and she had came from Germany with mom and dad and all. It wasn't her dad. Um, and I had told her, I said, why do you think he did this? And he goes, well, he had a book when he came back from Germany on how to have sex with children. So she said he probably got that from that book. I said, do what? Really? I mean, how are you to digest that information that they actually have books out there how to have sex with kids to gently mutilate a girl with that? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
How sick is twisted is this? And if they had it back in 1960, that book on how, so it's prominent even back
Well,
then about
well, the
having sex
problem
with
is
kids. See?
this didn't start in the 20th century. Okay, it didn't start in the 19th century, nor did it start in the centuries before that. This stuff goes all the way back to Egypt and Babylon. It's just, I guess the way to say it, after the Church of Rome became the predominant religion for Rome, and rebranded what we know as Christianity today, it brought in the the pagans, the people who believed in these traditions that they had engaged in through their ancestors. It was brought in to the church. I mean, there's no need sitting there and trying to kid and try to fool ourselves any longer, because the stuff is all very much, mentioned throughout the scriptures. Um, um, I don't have a Bible here to quote throughout the Old Testament um, about the sacrifices of children that the house of Israel, or the people of Israel, had started engaging in, like the Babylonians had done. Um, but prophets like Ezekiel, Jeremiah, um, they brought it up, that you know some people refer to him as Yahweh, you know And he said he never even considered it. No, it was not something that he required, you know, in his traditions, to be, you know, worshipped or respected as the God of Israel. So he never, he never condoned it. He never taught it. This is the stuff that the Pharisees were actually engaging in at the time that Jesus walked the earth. And we know what he had to say um, about the sexual abuse aspect of it out of the Pharisees. And as we can see, that is the ideology of the Zionists that are running Israel today, is the same ideology and traditions of the Pharisees. Just the only difference today and back then it was the oral law. It wasn't in writing. It was all opinions of these various rabbis. It's called the Talmud. And that's what he came and spoke out against, was against this oral law that they were out there teaching and justifying the things that they were doing. And what we're seeing today is, children have become a commodity.
Yes.
Just the sex trafficking alone is a $1 billion a year industry. That's
Right.
not counting the amount of money that the adrenochrome is selling for at $20,000 a fix.
Yeah, I had seen a recent thing where Putin had stopped some shipment of adrenochrome coming across to the United States to Hollywood.
Well, that was the main reason of him going into the Ukraine to begin with, was of the, to my understanding, what I've gotten out from other people, don't want to quote any sources, is the adrenochrome mills of the Ukraine, where a lot of the missing children from the United States were being trafficked to for the purposes of adrenochrome production.
Sick.
To me, I don't know why they would have to take them all the way to Ukraine and bring it back to the U.S. Because there's plenty of places here that they've been doing it. Epstein Island was one of them. They're Island St. James. And of course, they were working down there, according to Ghislaine Maxwell, cloning children. And it's like, even, there's some members of the CIA or former CIA that have broke their silence out here and exposing this stuff since we started exposing it. So it's all starting to come to light now.
And you said there's been they got the sperm of some of the elites, so to speak, and they've been impregnating some of these women so that they have the leech babies or something like that.
Yeah, don't even get them birth certificates. That way, whenever these children are pretty much born, really for sacrifice. And they say sex trafficking, but that's still the sugar coating way of saying for sacrifice for their adrenochrome.
Because she's wondered, Carlene's got a question. She says, do clone people have a soul?
I don't know. I don't know that much about clone. I wouldn't think, I would have to think there has to be a soul in order for the brain to function. Now we know souls can be one of two things. They can be evil or divine. I would have a hard time thinking that they would be divine, that they would, have a soul that the rest of us have, as far as our abilities to choose the difference between right and wrong. That's one question that I just don't really know myself.
That is a good question, though.
Yeah, I know that
I
the
would like
RH
to think.
negative
I,
blood type cannot be cloned. That
well, I
the
would
other
like to
blood
think
type
that
can be cloned.
I would like to hope that if they were people, true people,
Hmm.
whatever, even if cloned, that they would be born with a soul. Uh,
Hmm.
but their agenda is basically to destroy the soul. So I would think that they were born with a soul.
Yeah, I'm gonna believe every human being, whether cloned or naturally born, has a soul. Uh, the body cannot function without one. The soul is the electrical field inside the body that causes the body to function. That's the soul.
I like to think about, like one of the problems that I've had, Charles, is how many times, like, I would like to go back and I wish there was some way I could get justice, for some of the things done over there. And yet, some of my friends are sending me um, cases in Limestone County, Alabama, where, where that pornographer, where that main person in Limestone County that had 3 businesses and stuff that did the child porno. Okay. I would
Mm-hmm.
like to think that I'm so tired of people just basically arresting the small fry, as you say. You know what I'm saying? I would
Mm-hmm.
like more people that's higher in the government that's affiliated with these things, like even the businesses that's got a lot of money, the police that are doing this. And you said yourself that a lot of times in a county, they will, even the bad cops will arrest the pornographers or the child um, people that harm children because it's like we can do it, but y'all can't.
Well, that's it's kind of like we need to be thankful for sheriffs like Grady Judd down there in Polk County, Florida, because he knows a lot. He pretty much teaches the people there in his jurisdiction that they have the rights to self defense. They have the rights to citizens arrest. And citizens arrest, it's a little different than arrest by um, a law enforcement officer. You have to still use due diligence if you're going to engage in a citizen's arrest. You can use whatever force is necessary to detain them until law enforcement arrives to take them into custody. But if you use excessive and unnecessary force, you can still be sued under Title 42, 1983, just like a law enforcement officer can be sued under. So I guess that's why it's such a touchy subject that law enforcement doesn't go out and teach the people in their communities that they do have a right to citizens arrest. And self defense is, some people, get out of hand and, person refuses to stay, get on them and beat the daylights out of them excessively. And then next thing you know, they're facing charges, you know.
So you talk about Sheriff J.D. Judd,
Judd, yes, ma'am,
Grady Judd.
you know. And there's other sheriffs like it that is out there telling their community, you can't carry a cop on your shoulder, can't carry a cop everywhere you go. But you have a right to self-defense and you have a right to citizens and actually a duty of citizens arrest. If you witness someone committing a felony, trying to break in someone's home, automobile, or whatever, you have a right and a really moral duty to detain that person until law enforcement arrives to take them in the custody. And I see
Yeah, but
where,
wouldn't that be a shame though? Whenever a bad cop comes up, then all of a sudden you might be dead because the bad cop appeared. Not,
was it one more time?
wouldn't that be a shame? Like in Cobb County, where the bad officers are, where some of the bad officers are, like some of the kid that was in with a child trafficking, and they end up showing up instead of one of the good ones.
Well, you got that one in Cobb County. He got busted just like last week. Um, with
Okay, good to
stuff I
see you.
believe
Thanks
on the
for coming.
computer.
Lots of love, Parkey. Oh, and see what Carlene, after you say what you're saying, then we'll talk with
Yeah. I was
Parkey.
going to say a minute ago, I noticed where she had asked about do Clone people help souls? And I see here that she says that she has a friend that might know, and she knows much about the Bible and nanotechnology spoke about in the Bible. So,
And
that's,
the one I want to
they were
talk
cloning
about,
humans back in times of Egypt. The Egyptians and Babylonians were cloning humans back in those times.
yeah, I want you to focus on this last one that she wrote, though. I reported about a neighbor when I was 8. He heard her, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Was that? I'm sorry that happened to you. You had a right for them to protect you.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that too. I mean, it's, it's just been a cultural problem that Americans, a lot of us, whenever we were brought up, a lot of times were told better keep your mouth shut and be careful what you say and
Oh
all
yeah,
of that. And, and people are getting tired of that when somebody knows something, they like to be able to speak their mind without sugarcoating, buttering something up. There's that, um, there's always been that group that is always ready to speak their mind. And that's pretty much what we're getting with today. A lot more people are tired of not being able to say and express themselves the way they want to express themselves. And, you know, and these elite, they want to block us from using such certain type of words on social media now that don't, and it's nothing but a control thing with these people. It's not that you're offending anybody. Um, the words have been in our vocabulary, and it's actually a restraint on our freedom of speech to sit there and tell us that we cannot use certain words in the English vocabulary that we've been used to say in all of our lives. Like, if we're going to do something on YouTube, and instead of calling it for what it is, suicide, whether, he unalived himself, or he, unalived somebody. I mean, this is ridiculous. It
the
really is. And it's
hey,
really nothing but um manipulation of these corporations on the people to see how many people they can mold into their thing. It's like the COVID-19 ordeal was an experiments to see how many people would comply with their mandates, wear a mask and be in quarantine, just how many people would do that. And it's what it's done is backfired on them because it gave all these people time to get on the internet and start doing research on things that they normally didn't have time to whenever they were in their offices, working out of their offices instead of their homes.
oh yeah, You see
So
what
it's
there? She said she found out he molested his own kids and nothing happened. Carlene, if you could write me a private message in Facebook and give me his name, I'll try to see if I can find any kind of anything on him. You know what I'm saying? Um,
yeah, there's always that chance there was that fear factor. That's normally what child abusers do, whether it's to their own children or someone else's children.
right.
You better not say anything, or you're going to get it when I get home. If it's somebody else's child, they'll tell them, well, you better not say anything to anyone, your siblings, your friends at school, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, people you go to church with, school with. It's still that fear factors that these pedos use on their victims, children and adults, in order to keep them silent. You can go out here and report
Oh, okay.
child abuse, but if the child is not there willing to back you up out of fear for their safety, um, a lot of times you'll be looking like a fool. You'll be looking like a liar or a troublemaker.
You,
Um,
I was easily to be manipulated by my stepmom because whenever just that little bit of kindness when other people were around kind of confused me into thinking that she cared some. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Just a little bitty winks at times, a little bit of love towards her whenever. Sometimes when she started playing the piano and they'd pull me out of the room just for us to sing together, I start singing while she's playing the piano. She tell
mhm,
me how well I sing beautifully, and people love to hear me sing. I mean, it's kind of confusing when you got somebody that's usually devilish and kicking you and pulling you through the house, dipping your nose in cow manure, doing all this other kind of stuff, and then this other part of you. It's confusing to somebody when they're nice to you, and then it's like, does you feel like somewhat that you want to protect this person? You know what I'm saying? It's
mhm.
kind of weird, kind of like the trauma bond that they say you get, right?
Right. Well, I was blessed to have a family that, wasn't into this kind of activities. My cousin Robert, he was adopted by my Uncle James, is how he wound up with the last name Beach.
There were several of them that was adopted along with him too, right?
Well, his other two siblings, Wayne and Frankie, and of course, him and my brother Fred wound up poisoning Wayne back in 2007. He said it wasn't ethylene glycol, but I believe that it was. They'll tell you, if they tell you they didn't murder somebody a certain way, you could take it to the bank. That's the way they murdered them.
Oh yeah.
I don't think, I know dang good and well that Lynn Turner did not act alone when she poisoned her boyfriend, Sergeant Glenn Turner of the Cobb County Police Department, nor did she act alone when Forsyth County firefighter Randy Thompson wound up dead from ethylene glycol. I believe 100% that my cousin and some of that bunch was involved in both of those homicides. Lynn, she started out working 911 dispatch over there with my cousin Bonnie Rogers um, as an operator. Then, of course, Lynn, she wound up working with the Cobb County DA's office there for a while. And we know what kind of crowd worked over at that DA's office at that time. And I really think that Glenn Turner was really one of the more decent sergeants with the department when it came to certain things, but he would still approve arrests um, of those under his supervision, and would allow them to get away with things a lot of sergeants wouldn't allow those under them to get away with. But he was still the weak link. I think when they murdered this one victim over there in Cobb County, They knew it was going to come out, and they were afraid that he was going to say something about it. So they wound up, silencing him for good.
Yeah.
Of course, Lynn, she was already seeing Randy Thompson, who was the deputy sheriff for Forsyth County at the time. And Randy, he was um, on the team that stored the explosives from the baseball fields that was rounded up in 1998 and 1999 that had been planted in these baseball fields throughout, Northeast Georgia region and, even over Northwest, before they was turned over to the governor's office of the state of North Carolina.
Yes.
Randy was part of that team. So plus if I remember correctly, he was also engaged in that traffic stop in September of 1997, where that $3,500 worth of methamphetamine was found during that traffic stop that was on consignment to Milton Frady and Marilyn Parkman. And of course, the Talent brothers, Marshall and Jamie Talent.
About how many times do you feel that they try to set y'all up for the different things? Because I know with you speaking out, there's been so many times where these corrupt judges and the police and the people in power, Home Depot people, lawyers, all these different people set out trying to eradicate you and shut you up as well as your buddy Eric, right?
Well, of course, but not as bad as him. But you know, um, I've had these people smearing my name since I was a teenager. Back when I was in high school.
And it's kind of funny when
Um,
they were accusing you of instead what they were doing.
well, yeah, I mean, good grief, they were down. They totaled 4 automobiles down there in Lower Alabama trying to chase me around and chase me into these delivery trucks where it looked like I had an accident.
Yeah, we call that late L.A. or
Yeah, I
Alabama.
mean that's one of their ways of getting rid of people in these botched accidents. It's like there was this accident the other day with a police officer got hit with a delivery truck and lost his life. It makes you wonder, was it an accident or a staged incident? Because
Yeah,
you
was it
just
one
don't
of
know
them
because
again with
that's
a stage struck? They love doing that when there were good people that's trying to speak up and try to help. So I would look at him possibly with knowing what all was
as
going
I
on
look
as
at him
being
as
a
a
good cop and they
potential,
shut him up. Yeah.
yeah, as a potential homicide victim. Anytime there's a big truck involved, I've never driven an 18 wheeler, but I've driven the largest of the delivery trucks, um, 30, 30, 28 and 30 footers, single axle. I've driven those. I've driven dump trucks. And, if you know how to drive a truck, rain, sleet, or snow, um, it's kind of hard to have an accident in one of those trucks. Hard to control one of those trucks. Yeah, somebody can come up on the blind side of you and you don't see them and come over on them like that. But most drivers know that and they try to avoid that. But if you use enough caution and you're familiar, use your mirrors right, it's really hard to have a collision with a vehicle unless that other person is a complete idiot and just pulls right in front of you before you even have a chance to stop.
Right.
You know, But accidents do happen. I can't say everybody that's ever died in an accident with a delivery truck or anything like that was an execution. No, we know they do happen. Some people aren't paying attention when they're supposed to be, and you know, um,
Yeah.
mechanical error of both drivers. That's what caused accidents. But there's all kinds of ways that the deep state can get rid of you. They could stage an accident. Whether it's with the truck or whether with the
So there's
train.
and so there's even some that's right wing that still, because some of them are still even Republicans, and even not just Democrats, but there's a lot of Republicans that's in with this too that just don't want to be found out.
Well, no, I mean that's the problem. Yeah, you got the Republicans, attacking the Democrats. I'm independent.
Right.
Um, I consider myself moderate libertarian. I don't think I don't think a mother has a right to abort her child at her discretion. Unless the child is going to be stillborn or can cause her and the child to lose their lives. I don't know what to think about that, but to me, I'm like a lot of people. I think, once you're conceived, that's the beginning of your life. And if someone takes you out, well, you've been murdered.
It's
Um,
like with I was pregnant with my second son with my marriage, and the vein doctor I was seeing, he knew I just got through having one miscarriage, and then I started bleeding. I went back and seen his associate, and associate kept me in there at least. Oh man, um, it had to be over 45 minutes in there, and he ended up hitting my leg and everything, and he said, "Well, your son is a waterhead. You shouldn't care about him. Go on to the hospital and let me do a DNC." I said, "You do a DNC, you're taking my baby too. And I don't want you to take my baby." He said, "Well, you shouldn't care about him. Well, I'll come back and give you a chance to and see if you change your mind." He kept me in there a while longer, and then he left, and then he come back, and then he said, "Did you make up your mind?" I said, "I'm not going to change my mind. I'm keeping my baby." "Well, I'm going to give you a little bit more time," and he left again. He was not wanting to take no for an answer. And the time before last, he actually hit my leg really hard. I guess trying to intimidate me to get me to do it. Instead, that made me even madder. But I felt like if I left, who would really stand up for me? I felt like I couldn't call the police, or because the police never stood up for me before. They said my husband could beat me all he liked. So why would I, trust to call the police about this doctor hitting me in the leg?
mhm.
Um, because I refused to go and let him take my baby. But guess what? My baby was not a waterhead. He was, he's got a master's or bachelor's degree in college now and everything. And I'm glad I did not adhere to his threats, because he was a healthy baby boy. He was not as the guy said he, as the doctor told me he would be. No, so I'm grateful.
Well, I believe anyone that would abort a, you know, healthy fetus, are going to regret it. It's just, that's the beginning of life cycle. Um, we are the only species that will, you know, abort. We're the only species that will abuse our young, um, and go out here and, you know, murder each other off, you know, in a tribal environment. I mean, we're just really the most evil species on the planet. And I believe the whole test in life is if you're willing just to follow the commandments of God. It's simple. You honor Him the way He wants to be honored. You don't steal from your neighbor. You don't murder. You don't make false testimony against them or spread false rumors about them.
Right.
You know, and it's like Jesus said, do unto others the way you like to be done, or treat others the way you would like to be treated. That's pretty much what the whole design was intended to be, to where we could live with each other, among each other, and not try to kill each other.
Right.
And
So, can you give some more instances on what we're talking about too? Where how the power keeps trying to keep the good people to stop talking?
well, yeah, we're seeing it now out of the the Trump administration, that we've been seeing it out of the Biden administration, and of course, the the Obama administration, you know, and if we don't agree with something, we're supposed to be out here and able to voice our opinions. As long as we don't incite a riot, it's free speech. But it's to my understanding that they have just recently passed a law that you cannot burn an Israeli flag in the United States or you'll go to jail. Now, you can go out here, you can burn an American flag.
That's
Okay.
messed up, and that's our own country. That's messed up.
Yeah, you can go out here and burn an American flag and protest, of our country, but you can't burn an Israeli flag and protest of the Israeli government, because they're saying that the Israeli flag is the symbol of the Jewish faith, and there's a lot of Jewish people out there that believe it's going to disagree with them. The American flag has been defined by U.S. law as an idol. Okay, so why would any other flag be defined any other way if that's all it is a flag? It's
Right.
defined as an idol. Well, Israelis, they're supposed to be against idol worship. So, well, what's the problem with burning their flag if we don't agree with what's happening over there in Gaza? It's not, whenever I say something against, the Mossad or Israel, I'm not speaking out against the Jewish people, because crying out loud, I grew up with friends that were Jewish. My maternal grandmother's family were Jewish. All right. So, I know quite a few Jewish people that are fairly decent people, that do not support what's going over there in Gaza right now, and really aren't not liking what they're seeing out of the Israeli government. And even some of them are being accused of hating their own people.
Wow.
That's how ridiculous that it's gotten. And a lot of these people in Israel were not born of the Jewish lineage, don't have Jewish ancestry in their bloodlines. They're converts, and they'll sit there and tell you they're converts. That they came from Europe, other countries. The ones that did come from Germany who were Jewish are after the Holocaust, they're even speaking out against it. So it's really not anti-Semitism, but it's being treated as anti-Semitism if you have anything derogatory about what's happening out there. Well,
Right.
if is speaking out against child sex trafficking, international and domestic terrorism, is anti-Semitism. Well, I'm going to be guilty of sin for being anti-Semitic because I'm going to stick with the truth. I'm going to stick with the facts. I'm not going to go out here and falsely accuse somebody of doing something they didn't do.
Right, exactly.
I wouldn't want to be done that way, and I don't know of anybody else that would. But when I know for a fact that the people that I know that was involved in the terrorism, part of my investigations for the state of North Carolina were in fact members of the Mossad, that's just a fact. There's nothing
Right.
personal. I mean,
They're just making a statement on the truth that
it's
you had seen, you know?
yeah, it's making the statement. It's like Miss Gonzalez was wanting to know if there was any recent cases to cite. Virginia Guthrie, whenever she sued, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell, those files are becoming unredacted. What's been redacted out of them is being unredacted right now. So they're about to release the files on this.
Right.
And if Donald Trump is going to do what is right for this country, he's cut off the funding over there to Ukraine now because he said he's tired of seeing the people killed over there. Well, I hope he's just as fed up with that as he's seeing the people killed over there in Gaza. Because in Israel they got free college, universal health care. Okay.
They don't really need our money anyway.
Well, we supply them with the money. We supply them. I forgot how many billions of dollars a year the U.S. supplies them with money. We supply them with weapons. We supply them with everything.
That
So
means that
how
they
come
can
we
continue
don't have
hurting these.
how come we don't have free college, free universal health care that they have over there? And we're the ones that are paying for it.
Right.
I know there's a lot of people out there that are scared of universal health care. But I've been to Peru and I see how it's been working in some of the communities down there. Miraflores, for example, there in Lima, has universal health care for its citizens. And now, of course, the private clinics, you get the better care, but at least you get medical care for free. It's to my understanding, Obamacare was really a disguise to gain the data to everybody in the world's medical history, their blood type, their DNA, the whole 9 yards. So, you just don't know which side to trust on this, Democrats or Republicans. Me, I just tell people just don't trust either one. Trust God and trust your gut instinct, and just let God guide you through it and stop putting your faith in these political parties and in these presidents. Because I'm not going to sit here and single one out from the other. Whether it's Bush, whether it's Clinton, whether it's Obama, Biden, Trump, that is not what I'm here for. I'm here for to speak the facts, to speak it the way I see it from the experiences and the evidence that I have. I'm not here to earn brownie points. I supported Trump in the 2016 to 2020 in this last election. And if I had to do it over again, I believe I would, because to me, he's provided the better results than the other presidents before him. He provided us better results than what Obama did. And he's providing better results than what Biden and Harris did.
Right.
But still supporting Israel, I cannot support him on that. I can support him on just about all the stuff that he's pushing for and all that. I'll be happy to help support. But when it comes to supporting Israel, not bringing members of the Mossad to justice, just last week, a member of Netanyahu's administration and his intelligence and his cyber counterterrorism unit come over here to Las Vegas, trying to prey on underage teenage girls, and he got arrested. And he got out of this country right back to Israel. When 3 months ago, this man from India was a misunderstanding. He tried to help catch a little girl falling out of a shopping cart in a Walmart, and the mother sat there and accused him of trying to snatch her baby. Finally, they got it cleared up. The cases have been dropped. He got arrested. It was thrown out of court. The mother wasn't paying attention. Her child about fell out, and he helped grab the child to keep her from falling out, but he got accused of trying to snatch her child. That harebrained that got to go back to Israel last week should have never been able to leave. He should have been passport should have been yanked, given a large amount of bond to appear in court instead of just being let go and flying right on back over there to Israel. If anyone from Iran had done that, Russia, Europe, any of those countries, they would not have been able to leave this country until the case was resolved. It's just that plain and simple. We're going to find out that the reasons that a lot of these serial killer and missing children cases are not solved is the amount of members of the Mossad who are involved. And until we can sever
they're a lot with our banking too, right?
Ma'am?
They're a lot to do with our banking system too, right?
They run our banking system.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the problem. They run everything in this country. They run the prison system. They run the corporations. They run the finances, the banking, and the education. All this stuff that is promoted out of both political parties, they're behind. Information is coming out about George Soros now and him out here financing these Black Lives Matter and, the KKK, Aryan Brotherhood, they're over here in their minds fighting their enemy, Christianity. That's who they're fighting. We are their enemy. To them, it's our duty to supply them with the luxury lifestyle that they have. If we were to have a country like Russia or China or some country like that to come and invade us, do you think Israel would come to our aid? No, they would not. So that's where we're at.
Yes. Yeah, that's where we're at. We need to really, well, I know that Trump did say Israel's going to be for last, saving that for last, you know.
Well, let's hope so, because if he doesn't move fast, and they think that he is, they're going to wind up getting rid of him. They already tried it last July. Okay.
Well, you know,
They've
there's
already
one
tried.
of them. There's one of them. We're not speaking too much, you know, getting too political, but I did hear that they tried to bomb somebody's. What was that? They tried to bomb headsets.
When was this?
I think. Where's Eric? Eric was
Uh,
saying something about it earlier.
she's asking about what they were trying to bomb.
About headsets or something.
Hmm? Are you listening? What was it? No, I'm talking. We're talking about the bomb thing you was talking about earlier.
What did a political figure that they was wanting to bomb?
Oh, the political figure they were wanting to bomb.
Oh yeah, Pete Hegseth.
Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, they're trying to threaten the daggone threaten them with pipe bombs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're trying to do whatever they can.
Shut him up.
They don't want him. They don't want him. They go coming after him, but he's gonna. I mean, it's rightly so. I mean, you can't blame them. If they're targeting him, then he's got to target them. I mean,
Yeah. Once you become a target, you have to deal with your enemies the
gloves
way
are
they're
off.
willing to
Yeah.
deal with you. That's for sure.
the gloves are off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They want to silence so many people. It ain't funny.
Well, it's like that post I did yesterday. I had to get it off of my chest before somebody else was to bring it up. There was a lot of attempts on my life up there in Western North Carolina. There in September of 1999, when all this stuff come out up there between Eric Rudolph and me, and there was bloodshed.
And we don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. Don't try to go like this and try to harm other people. You know, let's stick together and make what's right. You know.
Well, I'm not going to run out here and bash somebody for voting for Biden. I'm not going to go out here and bash somebody for voting for Harris, Obama. I mean, heck, I voted for Kerry when he ran against Bush the second term. You know.
I remember when somebody was so mad at me before because I would not vote for Kerry.
Yeah, but Americans have got to get back to, pretty much just not even talk about who we vote for.
Right.
And not really worry about it. and not get offended who the other one votes for. We've
I
always
had to be like that around my ex mother-in-law because she was a staunch Democrat, you know.
Mhm,
And I better not have came back around her if I did not vote Democratic, she said.
mhm,
And so whenever I voted from then on, I felt like it was my business who I voted for, even if I did vote on, uh, the way that she wanted me to vote. I wasn't going to tell her because I deserve my privacy on how I voted, regardless.
mhm.
And I think that burned her up even more so when I kept it all secret on who I voted for. And, that's my own prerogative on who I voted for. It's not her choice. I got a right to a free voice too.
Mhm.
That's pretty bad when everybody tries to tell you what you got to do.
Yeah, this we're supposed to have the freedom to choose who we vote for, and we shouldn't hold it against anyone else who they vote for. And you know, the best thing is whenever you're talking with friends and stuff, just leave the politics out of it. You know, just look at the issues that is happening in the communities.
Right.
Um, what is happening is America is starting to transition more back into a more free and open society after being ripped away from us in the 20th century. And if we play our cards right and unite for the right cause, there's going to be accountability on these people. We're going to be seeing people like John Ramsey may
That
not be
scary
brought
thought
to
there.
justice, may not be brought to justice for the children that he's murdered, but he's going to be brought to justice for conspiracy to overthrow the United States government over his involvement in the Oakland County, Atlanta child murders, the Oklahoma City bombing, all these other string of terrorist attacks that they tried to complete, because he was very much involved in that conspiracy, just like Jeffrey Epstein was, just Ghislaine Maxwell was, just
Right.
like members of the Aryan Republican Army were, the New Order of the Ku Klux Klan. Um, all these, Jewish and black and white supremacist organizations, they're all funded by the same people.
Besides, huh?
That's it. And it's nothing but to divide the country apart, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. You know, and the communists, they realized that um, in the 20th century, that if they was ever going to break away the family unit of the American people, that they was going to have to demoralize this country and shake things up over here because you know who was controlling? Well, was the central bankers, and it always goes back to the bankers, no matter how you look at it. And, um, point fingers at it still goes back to them, and they say you could take everything from them and every penny they got, and within 2 years they'd own the world again. Well, take everything they got, lock them up, throw away the key, they might escape. So if they're guilty of seditious conspiracy under North Carolina law, or treason under U.S. law, well, take what they got and execute them, be done with it. We got to have accountability.
Oh yeah.
If we got a sheriff out here that's not enforcing the laws and defending the Constitution like he's supposed to, don't just vote him out. Lock his butt up. Law enforcement are supposed to be held to the higher standards than the civilians, because they're in a position of public
Hi there.
trust. They're supposed to be public servants.
Hi there,
Yeah.
Jody. How you doing?
Hello, Miss Walters. So I'm going to have to close it down here shortly myself. But
Yeah. Have you got any words of advice for people before we go ahead and go on when you these power hungry? I know that one thing that you've been doing is what is that, torts or something like that that y'all do, or something that
one more time.
what is that y'all do? Y'all been writing torts against the people to try to bring these people to pay for what they've been doing to.
Yeah, we're suing some law enforcement with the terrorists. We had an incident that happened at my residence back in before Christmas of last year, while we were attempting to make a trip to Washington to meet with
That's good, Jody.
Christopher Wray. And so we had a sheriff send some of his deputies over here to interfere with that. So we're taking them to court, and we're bringing this stuff out in the court anyway in Atlanta. And we're pushing to get this stuff released in court, because I got a ton of confidential witnesses that I want to bring up in this case until there's a convention of a special grand jury for the investigation. Then I'll bring my confidential witnesses to court.
Yeah, when it's time, ain't that right?
And I'm confident once the crimes that are presented for the grand jury, that they're going to be turning this case over to the military courts.
Hopefully soon, because this is ridiculous, for even anybody that's went through, and these higher ups just keep manipulating, and they're not really helping the people, to get justice, and they're part of the problem of the tractors, that the ones that per se, and that's got some affiliated with me, unfortunately, had, there's friends with Epstein, right? And
Right.
that's along with the trafficking, it's with the bombings and terroristic and child killings, the sacrifices, and all that. And they just keep getting away with whatever. And we are all tired of it.
Well, it's becoming common knowledge around Atlanta, Georgia, that Jeff Epstein was involved in the Atlanta child murders. I was watching a video earlier today about JonBenet Ramsey, how they went out there in the forensic lab out there in Colorado, and went in there with this agent and contaminated all the evidence from JonBenet's murder.
Yeah, they went and let everybody go in there and start cleaning up, which was a farce.
Well,
you know
no,
what I'm saying?
I'm talking about after they had the forensic evidence, after they
Oh,
started
after?
finding DNA, how they went into the crime labs.
Seriously?
Yes. To mask who all was involved in that child's murder, because she was not murdered in her home, for number one. Okay. And she was dead when John Ramsey brought her home that night from the party, they said from over the Whites. Well, heck, the Whites live next door.
Yeah, and
So,
people don't really realize because you could just walk across from that yard to that yard, you know?
well, it's like, they always hear them bring up, Jeff Epstein's places up there in New York and um, Arizona and, Florida, but you never hear them mention the house in Ohio.
And they also had a house up in Michigan, also around, wasn't that near where
The
the
Ramseys, yeah.
Oakland child murders and stuff?
Yeah, up there at that College of Performing Arts, whatever the name of it is, they owned a home there where Jeffy, took his music classes and when he was in college and you know, there was a lot of activities. People are going to find out that the very guy is his dad and his brother-in-law who tried to make me a porn star in 1973 when I was 7 years old with his 6-year-old niece was actually Jeff Epstein's partner in the international arms trade.
Right. See, Jody, no, they didn't actually ever say that they solved it, but there has been a lot of people that claim that it's stated to my friend right here, and also John Ramsey threatened Beth Ramsey, Matt Darrington, and another girl that when they helped rescue two boys from a barn at Bentley Farms, where they were gonna use them for sacrificial, and when they had them escaped, and Charles had told Beth Ramsey, that's John Ramsey's eldest daughter, right, Charles?
Yeah, Matt and I both told her that we didn't think it'd be a good idea for her to tell her brother John Andrew.
And unfortunately, she did.
That's right. And they got the two black teenage boys. If I remember correctly, the 13-year-old, he's from out by Orlando, Florida. The 15-year-old was out from south of Birmingham. Both have been taken in from the foster care system. And so nobody had them reported missing. And they really didn't want to leave that barn until I told them what they were being held for. Then they wanted to get out of that barn.
Yeah, there's gonna for
But
sacrificial.
they did not stop murdering children down there at the Chattahoochee River after the arrest of Wayne Williams. They just started bringing their victims in from, out of the metropolitan Atlanta, then of course out of state. And they have these farms located around the United States. They have at least one or two out in Colorado. They've got, last, 2 or 3 here in the state of Georgia. You pass by these old farms, you see these old barns sitting out there. You don't think there's really anything in them but a whole bunch of old antique tools and stuff. And that's where they actually be holding these children.
Right. So, Jody, you could go back and watch some of my lives and about JonBenet Ramsey when I'm interviewing Charles right here, and he goes a little bit more in depth. You could go back and listen to them, and you'll get more information on it. But yeah, he had actually, and of the 5 people that he threatened to kill was Pat, Beth, Matt, her friend Charles, and JonBenet. He all said that he was gonna murder, and he told Beth that he was gonna dress her up as what? I would let you go ahead and say
He
that
was going
explanation.
he was going to dress her up in these beauty pageants but he was going to pass her around like a madam in a brothel.
He's first got to dye her hair blonde.
Yeah, that was one of the best things was dyeing the hair. She, they had tried to convince her to dye her hair blonde and get beauty pageants herself. Patsy did. And
She's like, eh.
yeah, and she, bless her heart, oh girl, she went through a lot. She attempted
Yeah.
suicide twice. She turned to drugs and alcohol, trying to self-medicate from the sexual abuse that she endured from her daddy.
So everyone who they threatened that were going to have killed, and even threatened that he was going to kill John Bonet on the anniversary of when he murdered
Jill Robinson.
Jill Robinson, and look up the Oakland child murders, Jill Robinson, look at the time of her death, and that is basically the anniversary. Okay?
Well, a lot of people can go and research the North Fox Island pedophile ring and the Oakland County child murders, and they'll find, Francis Duffield Sheldon,
Right.
Dean Coral,
I mean, this has got some really big,
Bush.
prominent names in it, with a B name, that I don't want to mention at the moment.
Mhm.
Let's just say Hunter, right?
Well, it's like Frank Sheldon. He, after they attacked the Alfred P. Murray Federal Building, he was flying out there in the Netherlands and around Europe with Andrea Strassmeyer and Dave Holloway, formerly at the CIA.
Jody, would you like to come up on the screen too?
And so Sheldon, he faked his death there on July the 9th, 1996, out there in New Amsterdam. Got him a fake death certificate. Stated he died from unknown causes, unknown cause of death, and was buried at an unknown, location, and that's why I call him the dead zombie, because he's actually buried there in Cherokee County, North Carolina.
Yeah, I laugh about when you called him the dead zombie, because he reappeared and, a walking dead man, huh? And yet he was really alive.
Well, I was, some people out there kind of got a little upset at me because I'll sometimes get a little carried away with my jokes. And I was like, well, how do I write up a report on us having to execute a dead man? It's like when I go to these John Benet Ramsey videos and they start in the same old rhetoric of focusing on, on what happened in that house. So, I get carried away sometimes. I'll start doing these jokes, how can you tell that John Ramsey's, looking for a date? Well, you'll see his SUV parked in front of a daycare, kindergarten, or a playground.
Oh boy.
Yeah, because I'm sick of it.
Right.
You go in there, you say something, that's true. Some people will come there and tell you, go take your scripts, just go ahead, have your fun while you're at it, because you have to have some humor to keep you going. Because the stuff is so depressing.
And it's sad and sadistic what all they done to you,
Mm-hmm. And John Andrew, I call him the hair brain, without the hair lip,
And unfortunately, how I was involved with it, Jody, is my parents trafficked me and exploited me basically since birth. And when I was talking to Charles and hearing his story, I actually mentioned and described a couple of pieces of property on that, so he had known that. Yep, I understood and I was there, right?
Yeah, you described the concrete barn to the T and the pits and the way it did down at the end. That there was no other way that you would have known that if you had not been there. And I had
Right.
forgotten about that. So when you said that, you brought back some, some of the old memories that had been
Because
just
they
washed
got
out.
rid of because they done got rid of those two barns. But
Mhm.
you remember that?
Well, I had voluntarily taken that injection in
Right.
1976 because, when you're 9 years old, like I was, and I was almost executed by Jim Stubbs.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I went from straight A's down to C's and D's.
That's a telltale sign when your grade
So
change too.
yeah, so my parents got concerned over my education that they started taking me to these, you know, to the psychiatrist. I forgot his name. He was in Jasper, Georgia,
Thank you so much. Thank you
and
so much, Jody, for being a teacher and caring so much about the students. Because there's a lot of teachers out there today that are exploiting our kids too.
mhm. and um, and I was told that I would forget, the trauma, the stuff, and all that, that I would forget it, and that if they ever tried to give me another one of those injections later on in life, if it had any effect, it would be little effect at all. And of course, in 2013, they did try.
Well,
So,
that's a good thing that they did that, so now you can actually remember what they tried to get you to forget, right?
well, yes, ma'am. I had actually go back up to Murphy, North Carolina, and up to Blue Ridge and start getting with some of my friends, and they couldn't believe that I'd forgot a lot of this stuff that was, they would have never forgot if they'd have been in my shoes.
Oh, if they would have had that kind of shot, they would have too. You know what am I saying?
Well, yeah. I mean,
I mean, I'm wondering if that's part of what my blankness is at some of the details, you know?
hmm because when you're trying to sit there and try to pick up the bits and pieces to what you had forgotten, and you speak about the stuff that you do remember, if you're not careful, you could sound like a delusional nutcase. But
Yeah.
getting back out and, getting back with a lot of my old friends up there and other witnesses and stuff like that, that was really a big help. And then, of course, getting with my other buddies and witnesses in Atlanta, that was just really, really what I needed. Um, Getting back out and getting back in touch with everybody, and that I hadn't seen in, a few years, or quite a few years at that, some of them. And that's how I was able to, restore the majority of my memory. And so whenever we were doing that discussion there on the Traveler Spreads Truth Patriot
Yeah. Have you got
discussion there
Telegram,
on
Jody?
Telegram, when you mentioned that concrete barn and all that, it was like boom, and that other wooden red barn, boom, and I knew right then and there that you had been to Bentley Farm in Marietta, Georgia. There's
Yeah.
no way in the world that
Unfortunately,
you would have been able to say something that I had forgotten like
right.
that.
Because I
And
kept insisting I wouldn't shut up about it. Like, what? But there were four barns. But there were four. I mean,
well,
yeah, that's what I
they
kept saying.
had a lot of barns on that place, and that was the purpose. They had barns just for stables. They had your, that concrete barn that you described that windows, but you couldn't tell from the outside what was in there. And
Oh, I love you, Jody, just because of the way you're saying. I really love that. Do you see what she said?
mhm.
There are a lot of people out there that gives us teachers a bad name. We have about 400 kiddos in our school presently, and I get many hugs daily. If a child needs me, they get to come see me. That is wonderful. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, there are some really good teachers. I had some really great teachers, and of course, I had some that a few that really wasn't that great. But it's like anything else. You got your good cops. I mean, your bad cops giving the good cops a bad name. You got the
And
bad
Jody,
preachers giving the bad preachers a bad name.
right. And Jody, you can look at Amazon, look at Darlene J. Clark, Born in a Living Hell version 2.0. That's my latest book. And I'm working on another book, Charles. I don't know if you do that. It's called Silent Cries.
Okay.
I walk through the shadows,
Hmm.
where it's got to be more about the sex trafficking, and then I'll break it down how, basically the grooming. I'll say this is one way of grooming, by neglecting, showing a kid that they don't matter, etc. You know what I mean? Um, and to just break it down into chapters easier, and then saying some things haven't divulged in any of my other books, and some of the things I said in my other books, some of it ain't going to be there. Okay, it's going to just be basically saying, how, going through the patterns of it, on how they can manipulate somebody where they can be afraid to tell or talk.
Yes, yes. But yeah, I just figure it I would go ahead and jump down here on the stream this evening. I was actually had a headache and was laying down, but I'm glad
I'm
I got on
sorry.
here. I appreciate everybody for joining in and listening. And
A lot of people love it when you come online.
and
Love to hear you.
well, again, like I said, spread the word around to your friends, and your loved ones. This is going to have to be a grassroots operation. The
Good.
Coalition for Children is really an idea that can be turned into a wonderful independent organization with
Right.
each chapter operating by its own funding and operation without one central office being over it all and taking the people and run for their money like a lot of these nonprofit organizations do.
Exactly.
And
I'm going to let Jody know a little bit of tidbit right quick too. Have you heard of Eric Rudolph, Jody? I'm sure when you being a school teacher, you had heard of him. But actually, I don't know if you knew that Eric Rudolph was JonBenet Ramsey's ski instructor as well.
what I'm finding troubling is a lot of the young generation today that has never heard of Eric Rudolph.
Yeah, Eric Rudolph was the one that made a lot of bombs.
Yeah, he got convicted of the Centennial Park attack, even though he wasn't the one who set out the explosives in the Centennial Park attack. And I'll pat myself on the back for that one because him and his brother Daniel did build the explosives for all of the attacks. So he may as well have been there putting it out. He built the explosives.
Right. But that's pretty interesting to see. And yes, what's his name? The picture that you see of JonBenet Ramsey with Ghislaine Maxwell, Snopes has said it's not authentic, but it is authentic.
Yeah, it's authentic. The Ramseys would have never released that picture in 1998 or 99 when they did if they thought if there was any type of doubt in their mind that Ghislaine would have got busted for anything, they would have never released that picture.
Right.
That picture's been out for about 2-3 years after she was murdered. they let that picture out. People was wondering where that picture was taken at because
You said that was
there's
in Helene, Georgia, right?
in Helen, yes, ma'am, during Oktoberfest, 1996. And see, everybody, they want to keep us focused on Boulder. They don't want people realizing that, Lockheed Martin is mainly based out of Marietta, Georgia.
Ah,
That Excess Graphics was originally located and had a location there at Buford Highway and Interstate 285 in Doraville, Georgia. Because if they get focused too much on John Ramsey's career in Marietta, Georgia, well, they're going to put two and two together and come up before. And there's the Atlanta child murders. There's the Bentley Farms, and the
yeah,
child trafficking in Georgia, which is the worst of any state in the country.
and it's kind of pathetic. Like the first time when my dad had delivered me there, I could remember just standing out in that. They usually like to have me in that white dress that had a lot of blue flowers on it, small flowers. And the very first time, like I said, I was seeing this little boy running with all his might, and he ran, and I say blood on his chest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he ran right past me, and he collapsed and died on the horse stable pasture thing right there. He just collapsed and died right there. So he had been shot evidently,
Well, a
and
lot
that's
of
the
people.
first time when that I remember. That's the first memory of there.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people from Marietta remembers they used to be able to drive out there on what is now North Marietta Parkway, the 120 loop. That is
Right.
now the Whitewater exit. And they used to be able to see those two rows of concrete built horse stables from the highway, plain as day, until 1980. And when they were destroyed from the settlement between George Bentley Sr. and my dad's counter suit against him over the originally was a suit against my dad for wrongful death of Jim Stubbs, but you can't sue somebody for wrongful death if they had to kill your loved one in defense of their child.
Right.
But as we know, that concrete barn and the house that used to sit there below it, which was above those concrete horse stables, all of that was destroyed in 1980 from the settlement between the Bentleys and my dad. Now, according to Alice Summerer and the two recent articles of the Marietta Daily Journal newspaper, that they've had a problem with all their barns getting burned by all these people, and they burned down their horse stables and all that. Well, you can't burn down something that's built out of concrete. I'm sorry.
Exactly. You
You
can't,
just
man.
can't
You
do it.
can't
That
burn
barn that
concrete.
you,
Don't
I
burn.
both remember, that nobody set that barn on fire and burned it down because it was built out of concrete. Now,
Exactly.
these other barns, people from Marietta remember drive through there. There's been barns that would have been caught on fire multiple times.
Now you
And
know in
put
that
out before
concrete.
they did
You
any
know in that
significant damage.
concrete. Sorry, you know in that concrete burn and all that, they had plywood on there. Then they had these hooks and stuff. Then later on, and then I seen my handler. Was right there. By then, I was a little bitty tiny girl. And he had a gun at his side. And man, it was so shocking and everything. And I didn't understand what all them hooks was. And then I don't know how much time had passed before I realized what those hooks was for. Seeing all those dead kids hanging up around hangers who are dead, right?
Well, I think the same thing was happening out there in Texas that motivated the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I think it was the same type of operation out there that they had there in Marietta. when you sit there and you watch the movie, and then you go in and you do your research, because the guy was actually, his barbecue was actually, human meat.
Oh boy.
And so
Yeah.
that was his way
I
of
was
disposing.
hungry. I was hungry until you said that, okay? I think
Yeah.
you kind of helped curb my appetite right
Well,
now.
but these, like I said, this stuff has been going on for thousands of years. It's just now coming to light. Today, Americans, they have one or two choices: either accept it or put it on the back burner for the next generation. And that's
We
what
know
our
there's a
parents
lot.
and grandparents
We know
did
there's
for us.
restaurants. We know that even there's some American restaurants that's got human meat in the foods too. You know.
Well, I'd like to know which ones they are. I know that I'm very, when I go out and eat barbecue, I eat chicken.
And we know that recently showed a Hormel video where a guy was there and he had two samples of meat and he was telling them and asking them, you know that you are serving dog meat, right? They're using that they got from kill shelters.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I had it tested, it's dog meat.
Mm.
And now I don't think I want to eat it anymore, Hormel, if it's been tested that it's dog meat, man.
Well, it's just like
And
this
some
past
of the
week.
euthanized, so they're giving us some of the euthanization if we do that, right?
Well, it's like 34 states. Walmart had to call the shrimp that put out because it had radioactive material in it, so it was brought out there from Japan.
Right.
Radioactive, and here it was in Walmart's. So it's not going to be
FDA,
long when people are going to be going out there and buying them some little ranches and start raising their own beef and chickens and.
but that's what they're
Um,
trying to stop. They're trying to stop us from doing all that. You know that.
mhm. Well, they've been trying to stop a lot of things. People are starting to go back to do, um, their own gardening and stuff like that. But, um, you know,
There was a what are those called? Not Mennonite like people. What's the other name for people that's like Mennonites?
Amish.
Yeah, the Amish up north, and they had a lot of cattle, and they were selling the meat to the public, and the government stopped them. Said, "How dare you be selling that to the other people? You can only have it for your own family. You cannot have it." They actually went over there and started getting rid of a lot of their cattle and stuff
Well,
because
yeah, that's the big bully we got right now called government,
yeah,
and it's all starting to unfold, and um, you know, sooner or later, and it looks like it's about to be sooner. They're going to have an uprising. They're not going to be able to control. They tried to control the uprisings in the 90s by, being in charge of the terrorist attacks. But over 95% of the American people have computers now. They now have access to this information that they didn't have in the 90s. So you have a
right.
more awakened public today than you had in the 90s. And people have stopped listening to CNN. People are starting to stop listening to Fox,
Yeah, we want to try to
ABC,
find the truth. We don't
MSNBC,
just
and all them because they all put out pretty much the same narratives as each other when it comes to certain topics.
And
you know.
you know it's a when they don't use their own words when they're using the same words repetitively. You know.
Yes, and it's nothing but a big show. Um, you know, it's a false reality that they paint up for the people. You know, and you know the COVID-19 quarantine that backfired. Now people have gone to alternative news sources. They have turned to um, Blaze, YouTube, and I'm trying to think Rumble and all these other places got these alternative news sources, and that's who they're turning to now to get their information from. And so the mainstream media is losing control of the narratives now.
Oh
And
yeah.
for them, that's a scary thing. That's a huge threat. Um, People say, well, the Jews are the problem. Well, no, the Jews aren't the problem. The Zionists are the problem. Okay, because you got different classifications of Jewish people.
Right.
You got different denominations of Christians.
Just like even though my mother was bad and Hitler was bad, does not make every German bad. You know what I'm saying?
No,
That's
no.
you know.
But what we're seeing is a great awakening, and there's probably going to be some bloodshed in this country yet to come. But I believe that the American people are going to have the upper hand this go around.
We all need to be able to carry arms to be able to defend ourselves during this time too.
Well, out there in Jerusalem, you got the Israelis walking around with M16s and all that, afraid of fear for their safety now. I think they went out there and Iran went out there and blew up military um, every military facility and gay bar in Tel Aviv. Um, so
And a
they
lot of
broke their
times,
Iron Dome, they called it. Their sense of security has been crushed,
and a
and
lot of
now they're
times,
getting concerned.
yeah, a lot of times, y'all, when y'all hear something on the news, make sure y'all don't just believe whatever the news says. Make sure you check it out, check it out, check it out, and leave your eyes and ears open because sometimes these people try to put somebody that is innocent into the equation and instead of putting it to the person who really is at fault. Sometimes they'll just want to hurry up and solve a case and then just go ahead and stick somebody in there. They tried to frame Charles into some of the things, but he wasn't even in the areas at the times. They got so mad at him saying, "We thought we told you to be here." But I knew better than going there, you know.
Well, I always tried to make it a point to do an opposite of what they told me to do. You know, if I did one thing the way they said it, then they had that control. You know, if they had succeeded in hitting that U.S. courthouse there in Gainesville, Georgia on February 3rd, '97,
Exactly.
you know, I was afraid if I couldn't at least get that one stopped, I wouldn't be able to stop the other attacks, including the attacks on civilian targets. And, but of course, Mr. Kiss helped me stop that one. And I was able to get help in stopping on the majority of the other attacks. I wasn't able to stop the attacks on the Northside Family Planning Services abortion provider, but we were actually able to stop the attacks at the DeVry Institute of Technology that morning.
Yeah, and everybody was going like that and being okay with Eric Rudolph and stuff over there in North Carolina and stuff. But when his mom found out, saying that, so you ended up telling Eric's mother what Eric had asked you a question, and it really turned her head. She was really angry at Eric Rudolph about that.
Well, she knew I wasn't lying when I went over there and sat down to talk with her because I did exactly what my mother asked me to do. Go over there and sit down and treat her very kindly and very respectful. Um, and let her know how bad that she felt that she had a son out there on the run from the FBI. And that's what I did. I was really impressed with his sister because I thought I was going to say some hillbilly type sister with medium morals, and I was very impressed with Mara. I don't. I think if nothing else would have had transpired between him and me, if I'd have ran across her, I would have at least become friends with a young lady.
Yeah.
Very, very well raised, very set and high morals. Very much a lady. I was really impressed with his mother and sister. They Tom Flanagan. He and I we used to have a coffee in the Waffle King all the time, and I always looked at Tom as a good old boy that would give you the shirt off his back if you needed to. He had some problems with the feds with some weapons charges, but he wasn't a violent, radical, right-wing extremist, a homegrown terrorist, like they were trying to depict Eric Rudolph as. And
Right.
to me, he was Eric Rudolph. He sure wasn't a radical right-wing, homegrown terrorist by a long shot. He worked for Georgia Governor Zell Miller. He
Yeah, he
did
was hiding out right there
Robert
when after what he hiding wasn't this governor hiding him out when he was wanted?
No, actually, what happened was Zale and Shirley was building that new resort over there at the Brasstown Valley Golf Course there or golf club there in Young Harris, Georgia. And they got when Zale became governor, he got the 100-year lease on the government for that property to go in there and build that resort. They already had one already built. They built back in, oh, good grief, 89 when I was working up there in Blairsville at the Huddle House. They were building the first resort over there. And I didn't care for Zell Miller then. And anyway,
Did Eric ever meet Zell Miller too?
ma'am,
I wonder if Eric Kiss ever met Zell Miller too?
I don't think he did. I know Eric Rudolph knew him well. He highly recommended Rudolph to these parents to teach their children water skiing lessons. But here tell the media whenever they asked him after the search began, about Eric Rudolph working for him, he goes, wait, what? The employee, and he was a contractor, but I didn't know him. But they really, yeah. Why am I supposed to know every contractor who works for me? That was Zell Miller's answer to the media about it, and then Zell gave himself away back in 2005. When that 11 Alive in Atlanta did an interview with the Ramseys and asked John and Patsy if they had murdered their daughter, and what do? Zell, he was a U.S. senator then, picked up the phone and called the Atlanta news station and told them that any news station, any reporter or journalist that would imply that John and Patsy Ramsey had anything to do with the murder of their daughter, there was going to be retaliation out of the government because he personally knew the Ramseys and knew they did not murder their daughter.
Yeah, how did they know whether unless he was there or not, right?
Well, Zell was in Boulder when John Bonet was murdered, but John Bonet was not murdered at home.
Right.
Okay.
But she was down the road, right, in a homeless a house that was abandoned that nobody lived in but homeless people?
Yes, ma'am. That's the one where she was murdered at. There was like 3 or 4 families having parties there during the Christmas holidays in Boulder, including on Christmas Day. And nobody wanted any drug uses at their home, so they went down there to that corner house and they forced those homeless people out of there to where anyone who wanted to, do their drugs, smoke their marijuana, their crack or their meth or whatever, could go down there to that corner house and go in there and do their drugs there. And that is actually where JonBenét was murdered at.
And even though
Um,
John may not have been the one that actually been the one that strangled her or hit her with a thing, he was actually the one that planned it because as he said, he was going to have her killed on the anniversary of Joe Robinson's death.
well, he looked at Beth and he goes, "What? You don't think these big rich multi-millionaire tech boys won't pay high dollar to do their thing with your little sister? I got news for you. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell her to them, and I'm going to have her murdered." And but she was willing to risk everything she had to get them busted because she did not want to be. She knew what their plans were for the bombing of the Arthur P. Murray Federal Building after the following presidential election. And what their plans were in the Reign of Terror that they had planned for this country and the Revolution and Civil War that they had planned out. She was very, very familiar with their plan. She knew too much. I mean, good grief, she knew everything about me when I first met her, and I didn't know anything about her.
Because she kept
And
hearing John, her daddy, talking about you and not meaning to, like she'll be near the study or something like that and overhear conversations.
well, the $450,000 I was supposed to receive by July the 1st, 1996 from the Bentleys with 6 acres and a house over there on that ranch, they had offered my brother that $450,000 to get rid of me. If they would just pay him, they didn't want me moving in over there on that ranch because I'd have shut down their operation.
They're still fighting about you get that property and you're supposed to own it,
Yeah. Well, I'm about to sue the living daylights out of them now. And I'm going to get a whole lot more than what that ranch is worth.
Yeah.
So
There, y'all wouldn't
that's
want to
what
live
works
there
right
being
now.
being right there where, that happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to live there.
Well, I've got some people, they work over there in Cobb County, tell me all the time, "Charles, just go ahead and write your doggone book."
Yeah, you got a doctor that's supposed to help you do that too, right?
Yeah, but she's not been doing much effort on it, so I'm just going to present my case in court, and if somebody wants to write the book, they can, and I'll help them write it and co-author it and split the proceeds with them.
Y'all hear that?
So
You writers out there, you hear that might want to do that. Get in touch
Yep.
with my buddy Charles here.
it's bad enough having to write the reports and the pleadings and the stuff in the cases. Because everybody says it'd take 2 or 3 books to complete the entire story. So
Yeah, you might have to break it up into segments, you know what I mean?
it would. I mean, there's just so much to cover in it. It's important
I mean,
factors and keys that you wouldn't want to miss part because each part has importance to plays in later, in the cases,
What's
Um,
kind of funny, they try to say that, well, we shouldn't be involved because we're sticking our nose in it. No, y'all involved us. Y'all put us here. Y'all the one that did this and stuck us into this scenario. Y'all did it. So y'all need to be quiet and let us get our justice from the sick, twisted, diabolical stuff that y'all have done to many kids other than just besides us, okay?
yeah. Well, that was originally the first attitude I got out of some people up there in North Carolina. Was a, well, look, look at the mess you got yourself dragged into now. Well, I didn't drag myself. Um, yeah, I didn't get myself dragged into it. I just got dragged into it, period. I didn't go out there and volunteer to become a, child porn star at 6 and 7 years of age, to set my daddy up and frame him and send him off to prison for it.
And I'm glad that that didn't happen, that you ended up not getting filmed or something. Thank God for that, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well,
they were grooming you to do that. And I know you had to fear for your safety because that Jim Stubb was a horrible character that was related to the Bentleys.
mm,
The
well, what gets
son-in-law
me
to the
is,
Bentley, right? Wasn't he the son-in-law to the main Bentley guy?
yeah, brother-in-law, Ed Bentley. He's George Bentley Jr., but he goes by his middle name, Ed Bentley. He's the one that makes the silencers for the U.S. military. He
See,
also
that's
makes
why he's
some.
big in the government and not having to pay for his crime. Y'all understand this?
Yeah, he also manufactures some weaponry for the U.S. military.
Right.
So that's why a lot of people in government are afraid of these people, is because of people like John Ramsey and Ed
Rogers,
Bentley, um,
you see
because
his name up there?
they're international weapons dealers. They supplied all these militant and militia groups and terrorist organizations with weaponry. The Sandinistas and Dara Luminoso, all on the guerrillas and in Colombia, and they're the ones who supplied the weaponry. Jeff Epstein just wasn't into finance and just human trafficking. He was into everything.
Yeah, guns, everything, you name it, sacrificing. He actually even worshiped Baal.
Yeah, a lot of these guys that they're Zionists don't even believe in God. You know,
They find the
they're into
victims.
the sacrificial, child sacrifices. A lot of these guys that are in heads of these white supremacist organizations are just in head deep in it with them as they are. That's how they get their funding.
Yeah, I had a friend at school that a class. I ain't gonna go too much into telling that much about, but she validated that in the area where I lived, that there were people dressed in robes outside of a cemetery by a church that were clear right around where I lived. Okay.
Well, a lot of people that don't know me, that's heard me, on the interviews and wonder why I'm still alive. And a lot of people in Marietta, Georgia, all the way up to Murphy, North Carolina, will tell you why I'm still alive.
Well, a lot of it's got something to do with the grace of God because I don't see how, you missed that shot that you heard it go by your ear, when they shot the two black boys dead. And, luckily you turned or something like that, that
Yeah, I
kept you.
just immediately stopped in my tracks and stopped and looked, just stunned.
And that
And
saved
when I
your
saw
life
that, I
stopping.
went running over behind the dumpster there behind the Waffle House.
Yeah.
where they couldn't shoot at me again. And that's when Judge McLaughlin got out of his, Brown Buick Centurion and came walking up over there where I was.
Yeah, and
And
so as he ascertained before, Judge McLaughlin came into his life at an earlier time, and then he remembered him later, But when you were riding that school bus, and there he was at that wreck, and you got off the school bus to try to go help whomever, and he told you to mind your own business, and he kidnapped that guy from a car, and that guy ended up deceased and murdered.
yeah, and that was actually Ruby Elrod's brick mailbox's sister, Bill Hudson, who was sheriff of Cobb County at the time. So he carried out that hit for the Bentleys and for Sheriff Bill Hudson.
Yeah, and what's so weird about it, when you go back and look at the picture of the person for the murder thing, it's identical to when you showed the picture of how he looked back then.
Oh yeah, the I-70 serial killer. I mean,
Yes, yeah, definitely for sure.
well, you
And
can
he
see the
actually was
updating
living
where
in,
they put the beard on him, make him look older and all that, and look at his picture, recent pictures and tell that it's him. And
it's
he
like
told him.
on one of the Facebook groups also remember that was on John Benet Ramsey, and they actually had pictures of this other girl that was killed uh, before, and they said in a ditch, and nobody before ever seen pictures of her kidnapper or whatever. But then why was it in a John Ramsey thing, and then it was listed under John Andrews' name or something like that? One of the Ramseys had posted the picture, and but I showed you the picture, and you said it looked like John Ramsey, the daddy, in a cowboy outfit right there beside the
Mhm.
girl that wound up murdered.
Oh, it looked like John Ramsey in a cowboy hat.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, John Ramsey.
Yeah, not his daddy. Yeah, John Andrews' daddy. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean, John Andrews' daddy.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying, John Andrews'
yeah.
daddy.
Well, it's like when I said John Bennett Ramsey. You wonder why I was talking about John Benet, but you didn't
Yeah,
know.
I didn't know his name was. I didn't know his name was Bennett, and hers was Benet, though.
Yeah,
But it's like, do what? Let's see. That's the first time I ever noticed that his middle name was Bennett.
yeah.
So that's where they got John Benet from.
Well, I
After the
remember
Bennett.
the day where I first saw Jeff Epstein because Doc thought that I'd seen him down at the Chattahoochee that night, and I was like, "No, it wasn't the Chattahoochee where I saw him at." And I remember now where I had first
I
seen him
do.
at there in the '80s, and Zach,
There you
I forgot his last name. He was the house where everybody went to meet before they went down to the Chattahoochee River that night, supposedly to try to rescue those two boys. And of course, I told you Rex Harriman was there.
right.
Old tall, skinny, guy from down up north in college, Rex. And but when they had a get together back over at Zach's, later that summer, about 2 months later, or right into the fall, Fred took me back over there to the same place. And I'm trying to think of his name. Um, Dang it.
While he's
Um,
thinking about that, I'll let you know that he's talking about Fred Rogers, his brother, who was
mhm.
put into this. Uh,
But they're trying to solve their homicides now. I'm trying to remember his name. He was there. A reason why I remember him was he favored a lot, looked a lot like my cousin Johnny Rogers. I can't think of his name, but he was there. And I remember now some of the people was there, and one of them was Jeff Epstein because I looked at Epstein's pictures the other day and found this older picture where he had the longer hair, brown hair, and stuff like that. there in the 80s. And it finally occurred to me that he was over there at Zach's house that day. This was after that stuff happened at the Chattahoochee. And he had the snooty attitude about him then. So I was trying to, when I saw him come walking out of the huddle house up there in Blairsville, Georgia, you know, the day after the Centennial Park attack with 14-year-old Jen. She lives in Fulton County. I'm just not going to say where.
Well, I can't really. Hold on a minute. There you go. I don't really feel safe in saying exactly where I'm from.
But I was actually able to place where I actually first saw Jeff Epstein back in, let me see here. Actually, no, it was the following year. It was 1983 at that guy Zach's house. It was the following summer. Fred went over there to see a bunch of his and Roger's friends. And it was Bill something. And of course, Rex Harriman was there again. Tall, skinny guy. And Jeff Epstein was there. So actually, I have to back up on my words and say that the first time I saw Jeff Epstein was in Blairsville, Georgia in 1996. Now, the first time I ever saw Jeff Epstein was in 1983, I believe it was. It was before I met John Ramsey, so I believe it was that year, 83, when I met John Ramsey in November.
And those are the ones that put you into the places, you know, starting from Jim Stubbs, because Jim Stubbs was the brother-in-law, right, of
Ed Bentley.
Ed Bentley Jr., right?
That's right. And see,
and so they really wanted to try to get you into that, just to try to defame your father, in a sense.
Well, yeah, you know, George Sr. was a developer builder. And my dad was out there scooping up most of the land in East Cobb and South Cherokee County, getting it zoned and getting it developed before George could get his hands on it. That's what it was. Right. And my dad was developing and building the hell out of East Cobb County back then, even out to West Cobb and to, you know, East Paulding County. He had done some of Horseshoe Bend, developed and built part of it. He did a lot of the duplexes over there off of Powder Springs Road and Austell Road. I mean, he was just pretty much developing and building everywhere, really.
Yeah.
So he wasn't the largest developer, but I believe he was at that time, because he was building with Bill Hudson's cousins, Charles and Richard Hudson. Very reputable builders, very great men, and very, very fine men. I always got along good with Charles and Richard. They were great people. I can't say that about Bill Hudson.
That's what I was about to say, but you couldn't say that about Bill Hudson. That's why I was waiting to say that.
Yeah, but you know, they were cousins, but I always had the utmost respect for Charles and Richard Hudson as builders. You know, it was Charles and Buster Key. They were the builders. Built with my dad. They're the ones that helped him get the 2 cattle ranches up in Morganton in 1973, where he could move us up to one of them and move us to the other one whenever Jim Stubbs made his way up there with the help of Danny Hughes. And
hey, Charles, can you explain to people why it's not a good idea for me to say exactly where I was from?
They can figure out who she is, and they would want to come and take her out.
Yes.
So it's not good for her to say where she's from.
Thank you.
They have to come and shoot me, because if they get in reaching distance, I'll break their jaws and shatter their cheekbones. So that's the difference.
Great. So thanks for answering that. Well, I think we said a lot of information. If y'all want to go back and listen to any of Charles's other to further know about this crime syndicate of people, but I do have to beware of saying my exact location. So I appreciate people that stand up and support me on this because I got to keep being a voice. It don't need to be silenced.
Well, we need more voices, and I
Thank you
hope
so
that more
much.
people will come forward, and more people will do interviews. More survivors will do interviews with you, and
They can use
awareness.
alias. They can use an alias like this as an alias, you know.
Hmm. I was listening today to that one lady down there in Florida that got that Logan guy for Subway busted, and she's down there in Florida, and she's very brave. She's given out her location, even though she's had threats against her
Yeah.
for getting him busted.
Sometimes it comes to a point in time, like I'm 62, so I had got the message that it's about time for me to start spilling the beans on something. That's why I'm working on this newer book now.
Hmm. Well, I
Because so
think
many
Megan
cases are,
Kelly. I think they've directed some threats against Megan Kelly. They're out there now. Got Candace Owens under attack. Um, um, what's his name? Hunter Carlson. They got him under attack right now. A lot of these people were huge,
like Carlton Tucker.
supporters, pushing for Trump, but they don't like what's going on in Gaza and Israel right now, and they're speaking out against it, and you can't blame them. I mean,
Exactly.
you
But if you
know,
ever notice some things that goes on type of thing, there's you'll never know what's being surprised that some things are not being shown to the people what's going on because they don't want them to be able to run and hide. You know, they want to end up getting them. You know, they've been running for cover too long. You know.
well, let them all go run to Israel, cut off the funding, and let the Arabs deal with them.
Yes. I'm uh I'm for that. Yeah. I pretend like your hands up in the air and I'm smacking it. Yeah.
I mean, either there or Komodo Island. I don't think they'd survive on Snake Island. You know.
Yeah, that's bad that they're gonna get rid of possibly alligator Alcatraz when that's a perfect type place to me, you know.
Well,
But
yeah.
people that hurting our Americans and raping our women and hurting, killing our women and killing the guys and all kind of stuff. These terrorists, you know, and so I don't believe they should be. If they try to escape, that's on their own volition, you know. But you want to get them away from that because it's not human. That's they'll be okay if they stay in the prison. You know what I'm saying? But if they try to run, yeah, an alligator's going to get them. So don't run. That's simple of it, right?
Well, as many times as I've been to Peru and I sit there and watch the news narratives that they put out on the news of Peru, it's the same companies that own these media outlets throughout the world. You know, um, down there they'll put out all this anti-American rhetoric. They're on the news to these people in order to stir up hatred against Americans. But here in the United States, they're demonizing these people in these other countries to the American
Right.
people. And um, that's what we're seeing that is going on. That um, depicting us up as the um, um, I'm trying to think of the name of that term from Star Wars. The communists like to use to call us, you know, like I said, on tip of my tongue, can't come right out with it, but the
I'm sure if my boys were listening to this right now, they would have been able to say that word already.
imperial,
They're big
you
old
know,
Star Wars fanatics, you know.
yeah, they've been calling us the imperialists since the 1950s,
Yes.
and why? Well, because that's always been the whole Zionist um, agenda all along, ever since it was set up over there on Jekyll Island and planned out there on Jekyll Island like it was in 1910. And you know, it's been a slow moving process to get the American families broken up and the American people divided. Public opinion. It's been a long drawn out process.
And the
Um,
best things for everybody to do is talk amongst ourselves, be there for your families. You might a lot of times have some differs and stuff like this. But when my family, I cannot talk with them. I got a couple who I love dearly that I would still talk to, but when they're so diabolical to try to protect the people who sold me, trying to say it's okay, that you were the reason. It's your fault because you were sexually abused. That they did this to you because that's God's punishment. You being a bad girl. Da 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 da. That's not godly at all. Okay.
no.
And so sometimes you just have to say goodbye and cut some of the people off, and you got to go on with your own life and your own health. You don't need people like that pulling you down. So whatever you do, if you got negative people who keeps pulling you down and blaming you for whatever happened to you need to steer clear of them, get better for yourself, and know that you are worthwhile. It's not your fault that these things have happened to you.
Well, it's like I was told by one cousin here 2 years ago. Man, it kind of struck a nerve when I was told that because his sister had worked in that IRS building there on Beaufort Highway that they had tried to hit with that third truck bomb that morning. Well, it was actually supposed to be the first target hit. Was the IRS building. The second building they were going to hit was the General Motors assembly plant there in Doraville. And of course, the third truck bomb was going to be at the MARTA rail station there at the Doraville station. I went out here and risked my life, to stop those attacks because I could not think of having to go to one of my cousin's funerals of her dying in a truck bombing on that building. Then to be told by her brother, that she nor her sister wants anything to do with me.
Wow.
That
They
kind of
could
struck
care less.
me
They
pretty
could care
bad
less.
because I was
Wow.
raised that that's your brother. You're supposed to look out for your brothers. That's your family. You're supposed to look out for your family, which it wasn't just my family that I was looking out for. I was looking out for everybody. I was looking out, um, for my former classmates from high school, them and their children. I was looking out for my former enemies from school and their children.
Right. Thank you for that.
I was looking out for people who hated my guts and their children. I was looking out for everybody. My daddy taught me that if I needed to make a decision on something to do, whether to do it or not to do it, was out, sit there and come up with the reasons to do something and look at the reasons not to and base the decisions on which one has the greater. And that's what I did. I had more reasons, to risk my life to go out here and stop every terrorist attack that I could, because in my mind, they were going to kill me anyway. They were not going to stop until I was dead. So I was going to stop every terrorist attack that I could until I was dead. Because I did not want to die not knowing I did anything to help save any of my friends or non-friends or strangers' lives. This mess that they had planned for this country in the mid to late 1990s. They intended to tear this country apart in a racial civil war revolution to where they could come in with their new world order. They would have had the control of Israel, the United States, and they were going to try to take control of the rest of the world. It's just we in the Christian population were not welcomed. And that's what it boils down to. And this cousin of mine, he's a Pentecostal preacher. Going to sit there and tell me that his siblings didn't want anything to do with me. And I hate to say it. If that's the case, it's because they were stupid enough to believe the lies about me. And I don't need people like that in my life anyway. If they're really that naive and stupid to believe anything that my brother Fred, Grady Moore, over
Yeah,
there
that
at
was
the County District Attorney's Office,
yeah, but no,
Joe
Greg
Pugh,
Ford wasn't he?
investigator. Huh?
And I thought that was kind of weird also that years later, when I was with a boyfriend and I met this guy at the dating site when the boyfriend and me, he was starting to cheat on me, so I wanted to go my own way. And so I met up with a guy named Butterbrains, and then come to find out that happened to be one of them. And I was actually in their house in Georgia as an adult and just trying to figure out what to do with me there, remember? And I'm
Yeah, I
glad
can
that I ended up
imagine.
getting out of that situation too,
I
So
can
even
imagine.
as an adult, they had me for a little while, okay?
I could imagine what his wife's going to say about that when she finds out, if she has any decency about her. But
Right,
I
Butterbrain's
don't
wife.
care. Like I was saying, I don't care if they was listening to Fred Bentley Jr., Randall Bentley Sr. over there at Bentley Law Group in Marietta, Alice Summerer. My family knows that the first attempt I had on my life was in 1975 in Morganton, Georgia. They
Yes.
know damn good and well that I stopped those 14 terrorist attacks along the Buford Highway corridor the morning of March 11, 1997. 14 attacks in one morning. So I
No,
stopped over 30 out of 35 terrorist attacks, risking my life for other people.
thank you so much for that.
So if they want to believe the lies that these communists that Fred used to call his friends, if they want to listen to the communists, the hell with them.
Communist.
Yeah. Because that's what they want to
Cobb
listen
County, right? Copy
because they're dirty. Everybody and their brother in Marietta are starting to realize they're the ones in charge of the child trafficking in the state of Georgia. Bill Hudson, when he was sheriff, he had his head stuck up George Bentley's butt. When Neil Warren was sheriff, he had his head stuck up George Bentley Jr.'s butt. And the first black sheriff of Cobb County still has his head stuck up his butt.
And a weird kind of thing, because you got to watch out if he gets a Whopper wrong. My goodness, and he cannot have it sliced in half. He'll call for his other police people. Hey, come! They refused to cut my Whopper in half.
Yeah, the Burger King
For
sheriff.
the police to come, they won't cut my Whopper in half.
Then he wants to sit there and explain it away. He just wanted to bring it to the managers. Well, you don't have to call out 2 sheriff's deputies to do that. You can just simply walk in like anybody else would do and just has to speak to the, manager,
Uh-huh.
And he still got elected.
I want to say, yeah, and I want to say something right quick too. With the house where the guy had taken me to as an adult, you would not expect it to have been the way it was. First, when you walked in, there's a basement to the left, and then there was a sheet or something of plastic on the far side of the wall, and he said that he was redoing that area, which it really could have been blood covered. We don't know. But he took me on upstairs, and there was one bedroom. And I was like, what's kind of weird, it's a bigger house. It looks like there's more rooms. And you walk in the bedroom, go to the end of that house on that side, and that's still the length of the bedroom right there. And there's a bathroom, okay? Then you go back around the bed, and there's a closet to the left of the bed. And then there's another room right there that was his computer room, where he had 2 to 3 or 4 different computers right there. So he had to be working in some type of investigation type of thing. So anyway, the scary thing that he did, he went into the closet, he pushed the clothes to the side, he removed some of the paneling, and he showed me a hidden bedroom, y'all. I kid you not. He showed me a fully bedroom that had a bed in there and had the pillowcases, curtains, and everything. Bed was fully made. And he tried to convince me to go in that room, and he was telling me, especially if he's telling me, well, you could go in there, and if the police try to come after you to try to find you if you're screaming, they'll never find you. You'll be trapped in there forever. So what kind of stupidity did he think I was going to actually willingly go in that room after he told me some bullcrap like that? You think I'm going to seriously do that and say, okay, well, let me see. I'm curious. I guess the normal person might have done it or had done it for them before, but I didn't. I'm like, hey, heck, no, I'm paying attention to what you had to say. I'm staying far away from that area around you.
Well, it's like the day after they killed those 2 black teenage boys over there. It was crossing Greenbrier Parkway there to go around behind the Waffle House, Unit 479. Beth Ramsey and Matt Darrington called me at my mother's house the next day, wanted me to go out there and meet with them. And I did. I couldn't believe, though, I couldn't see the logic of them wanting to go back out there and talk with the Bentleys and of course, my brother Fred and Roger Nance.
Right.
But Paula went with Matt, and Beth went with me. You could see that barn right there, right off of the 120 loop. The barn that we had, or I had helped the 2 teenagers escape from, it had already been demolished and removed. And they had already rebuilt a new structure in its place that fast, just overnight.
Yeah, and they try to make it seem like nothing was really done with the thing, and it was just a shade different, right?
Yeah, and Beth wanted to see what was inside that barn.
Right?
And they're like, well, come on, both of y'all come up. They're standing out there with shotguns.
Talking about Beth Ramsey, John Ramsey's oldest daughter.
Oldest daughter, yeah. And, you know, and Beth, she was a beautiful young lady, you know. And she knew Fred and she knew Roger.
Yeah, Roger Dance.
And they're telling her, she's asking, well, what's in that room there? Well, come on up here. We'll show you. And she goes, no, just tell me what's in there. No, no, no. If you want to see what's in here, you have to come up here for us to show you. And I forgot exactly how they said it, you know, because here's my brother married with children. Roger married, you know. And they insinuated they were going to have their little fun with her. And that kind of offended me there. And I guess it's where they tried to say that I was overly fond of her. No, it wasn't that I was overly fond of her to be, I was wanting to be with her. It was I gave my word to her fiance that I would protect her as though she was my fiance. I would make certain that they would not do anything to her. And he did the same thing for her friend Beth. They had him up on the mountain up there in this area with Paula, my cousin Robert, and Ed Bentley did. And Matt did the same thing to them that I did to Fred and Roger. Whenever that Fred made that remark to her, I said, well, Fred, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just step out here from the field right here? You put down that shotgun and come on out here, and I'll give you first swing there, bro. And I'll tell you what, if you whoop my ass, you can have your way with her. I said, if I whoop your ass, then I get to whoop Roger's ass, and she and I get to see what's inside that room. So they're kind of smart. So I stepped out in the clearing where people from the 4-lane could see me, the cars that were passing by. Oh, you need to step back over. I said, no, if you're going to shoot me, it's going to be out here where these motorists passing by will see it. Okay. And anyway, in the conversation, Fred asked me, he goes, have you talked with Mama today? I said, yeah, I talked with her before I came out here. And what'd you do? I told her I was coming out here to meet you. I lied. I didn't tell my mom where I was going other than to meet with some friends. I didn't tell her I was going out there to meet with Fred and Roger. But I told Fred and Roger I did. And that's all they needed to know. They decided right then and there that they didn't need to do something to me because they thought that my mother knew I was going to meet them.
By the way, right here, this is Butterbrains right here.
Yeah, Joe Pugh. And there's the last one you went up, Becky. You want to back that up there? That's the Wayland and Joseph Davis. That's my buddy Will Davis. Boy, that's the anonymous caller to the Centennial Park attack, and he is also a suspect in the homicide of John Benet Ramsey.
So I would go for the very beginning picture, and you tell the people who these people are.
I'm trying to remember their names. They're from Marietta. They're Gridiron. They're part of the group. I had them attack me a couple of times on social media and stuff like that. They're friends with Joe Pugh and Grady Moore and all that bunch over there in Cobb County. I forgot their names. And there's Arthur Blank, the founding CEO of the Home Depot Corporation and owner of the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United soccer team, and suspect in the Atlanta child murders, the Oklahoma City bombing, and also suspect in the West Memphis 3 homicides of 8-year-old Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, Christopher Byers, right along with Bernie Marcus, Ron Brill, and Ken Langone. All members of the Mossad. They were IDF in the 6-Day War in 1967. That's Big Ray Duncan. And, of course, there's Beth Ramsey with John and Patsy.
She's
That's John
beautiful,
Benet's
wasn't she?
oldest half sister.
And who did you say this was?
It's Big Ray Duncan with his former partner. I forgot his name in the wine business.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, Big Ray was involved in a lot of this. There he is with his sons,
Okay, go
Tim,
back to it.
David.
Okay.
And now Tim and David became allies of mine, along with Hunter Biden, in stopping these attacks.
Hunter Biden actually helped you?
Yes, Tim and David did. Yes, they did. They ruled against having Eric Kiss and I executed out there on coming that afternoon.
Awesome.
And of course, Sergeant Glenn Turner, Cobb County police officer, murdered by ethylene glycol. Cheryl Underwood, who was murdered by the police a month before Beth, Matt, and I rescued those 2 boys from that barn there on Bentley Farms. Roger Nance with the second wife. Leslie used to be Leslie Snowpeck, my buddy Dean Snowpeck's wife. She is now married to Roger and happily living in my house over there in Cedar Drive, Marietta. I forgot these guys' names. Involved in the Atlanta child murders, members of the Jewish community. Tommy Albert Samples, suspect in the homicide of 11-year-old Levi Frady. He was actually ex-boyfriend of Jamie Rudolph, Eric Rudolph's brother Jamie, and also an ex-lover of Daniel Rudolph. So
yeah, because he liked both. He liked the other sex too.
Well, yeah, he also wound up becoming boyfriend of Marshall Talent and tried to stab Marshall to death in 2016, I believe, an argument over the gun that was used to murder Levi Frady with. And he's still sitting in prison, Georgia Department of Corrections, for attempted murder of his ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, but why aren't they still serving time for, doing what they're doing, killing these other people? This is
Now,
Alice
that's Alice
Summer.
Summer.
Yeah, she's over at Bentley Farms.
Yeah, Bentley Farms is titled in her name. She's a member of the Bentley family.
Yeah, there was a barn burned under not too long ago, too, a couple years back. And she's like, we don't really know what the barn she's burning.
Well, I'm beginning to wonder if that's actually Jim Stubbs' youngest daughter. I'm beginning to wonder if she's the one who they tried to make me a porn star with in 1973. And of course, Bernie Marcus, he passed away this year. He was a sick bastard.
Who was he involved with?
He was one of the founding executives of the Home Depot Corporation, was also the founder of the Atlanta Aquarium. It was also in the plot in the June 19th, 1997 attempted bombing of the Home Depot corporate headquarters there in Vinings. And he's one of the ones I saw down at the Chattahoochee River that night with Ron Brill, with Ron Brill's flashlight on, when they were gang raping 2 black teenage boys down there at the North Bank of the
And also
Chattahoochee
Ted
River
Turner was
with
there too, you
Missionary
said,
Pass.
right? You
Ma'am.
even said Ted Turner was there too, right?
Yeah, I saw Ted
And then
because
there
of
was a
Ron's flashlight. So that's how Ted Turner earned the nickname Tiptoe Ted.
here's Bill Hudson.
Yep, former sheriff of Cobb County. He was involved.
We know who this is.
Yep.
And this is the road to Bentley Lake Road when they're tearing down some of the, or doing some construction of
Well,
some
no,
sort
after I
over there.
started releasing this information on social media, I decided to pull over there. One day, went down the cul-de-sac. They had it all taped off. The barn had burned. So I
Right.
pulled back up and this old Jeep, I forgot the old boy's name that was driving it, was checking the mail, saw me. So they went over there and fenced that off so public couldn't have access except for Sunday mornings to go to that black community church that they have over there on that ranch. That is Bobby Cook.
Fred Cook's cousin.
That's Mike Cook's cousin. He's one of the bomber suspects of the Centennial Park attack. And there's Big Bird.
Yeah, cause look his hair, it looks about the same, and neck and all.
Big Bird manure. Big Bird veneer.
Oh,
Now
let
that's
me
Danny
look.
Hughes. He's the one that actually led Jim Stubbs to where we lived in 1975. That's his 2015 mugshot from the homicide of my buddy Terry Owenby. And there's that composite sketch of Doug McRae of the Radio Shack and the Oakland County child murders.
And my handler.
Yeah. And there's Ed Bentley Jr. and him and Maxie Pad. And of course, Eric Rudolph. Well, Eric Natheth now.
Here's the Eric Naismith
Yeah,
picture right
Eric
here.
Natheth. Yeah.
Psychiatric nurse practitioner in Arlington, Texas.
And there's old Frank, the dead zombie.
And here's him when he was younger.
Yeah. Oh, Bill Ramsey, Frank Floyd.
Yeah, because that's how John Ramsey introduced him as at first was Bill Ramsey to you.
Yep. Yep, Franklin Delano Floyd.
Look at his alias: Trenton Davis, Charles Hughes, Clarence Hughes, Preston Morgan, Warren Marshall, Kingfish Floyd, a scar on left hand, may wear glasses, felony warrant issued. If they want to do stories, they were saying what true crime do, whatever. I think more needs to get divulged about Franklin Delano Floyd too, because he was with that North Fox Island,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep, there's Fred Bentley Jr.
And he is an
Bentley and
attorney,
Bentley Law
right?
Group. Yeah, I saw him down there at the Chattahoochee that night, June 19th, 1982.
Uh-oh.
There's his daddy, Fred Bentley Sr., the keeper
It
of
tells
the
from the
crypt.
crypt.
Yep, the keeper of the crypt. There's Fred Cook. There's my brother Fred Rogers. There's Fred and Roger Nance again with Stacy Farmer back in 1982 when they sold my 1894 Winchester 32 special U.S. Army issue to Florida to some gun collector.
This is Grady Moore. Are you there? This is Jeff Carrier. Jeff Carrier at scene. Joe Pugh, Joey Davis, John and Beth Renzi. Show how pretty she looked in that dress. There's a conversation between John and Charles, you know. They all effed up. Charles said, "Yeah, well, listen to this one. I made you well look good. What are you wondering? Well, we're going to help each other, going to talk to you. They're going to see who's out those boys where they came down to kill my mom and they were going to pray." There's a lot more to that conversation, too. This is Johnny Isaacson. There is John Ramsey and his new wife, John Ramsey and Patsy. Here is the picture with John Bonet and Ghislaine Maxwell over there at Helen, Georgia at Oktoberfest. There is that Judge McLaughlin that he had witnessed him when he was younger. Not that boy that died. There's Mark Thigpen. This is Matt Darrington. This was Beth Ramsey's boyfriend that also got killed. He would never usually drive in the rain. There's Mike Cook, Ted Cook's brother. There is actor here in certain details admit to murdering 28-year-old Mary Carter in 1981. Was very easy to solve her case once I discovered a composite sketch of the suspect who picked her and her daughters up at the convenience store. Doesn't leave much room to identify anyone else other than Franklin Delano Floyd. So the list of suspects in this case from admission are as follows: John Bennett Ramsey, Cobb Assistant Magistrate Mike McLaughlin, and Doug McRae. All have also confirmed the presence of Frances Duffield Sheldon during her homicide, which occurred at Frank Floyd's residence in Cincinnati. They actually killed her and propped her body up against a sign with her two daughters. So her two daughters were right there on the side of the road with their mother being dead. This is Randall Bentley. This was Ray Duncan with Duncan Oil. This was Richard Eminence. This was Robert Beach, Charles's cousin. This is Roger Nance and his wife Leslie. This is Ron Brill, also, like he said, with the Home Depot. This is Rosalind Carter with John Wayne Gacy, the murderer. This is Shirley Miller. That was Zell Miller's wife, so she was the governess. This is Steve Gould, Terry Nichols, Tommy Chapman, Wayne Beach, who they ended up murdering. That was the brother they murdered. Zell Miller, who was the governor. I hope this information has helped a lot. Showing the pictures. Hi, Mr. L. Good to see you. Hadn't seen you in a while. Miss you, buddy. I was getting married at the age of 16, but he got killed on the way home 2 days before I was never 2 days before I never married. I devoted my life to children and thank the Lord for that. I appreciate you doing that. You are awesome. You are amazing. I'm sorry you went through that right there. I thank you all for coming. I bet his battery died, and I think we got a lot of information, and we should stand up and stick up for whatever's going on in our society. You know, like I would hope that more people's going to stick up with me. What's going on with my um, problem here that I'm having? Uh, it's been a terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope you get to feeling better. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to say God bless y'all. And I appreciate and love each one of y'all. Have a blessed night.